the daily life of a secret agent in American TV series. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, Los Angeles Retirees Club. Welcome to New York. Tangerine raised his champagne glass excitedly. No, I should say this. Ron clinked his glasses with him. Welcome to America. The car started slowly with a loud music, and Ron didn't notice that his cell phone started ringing when the music started, but it was forgotten by the owner and was placed in the corner of the car sofa. Then a woman with a strong figure sat on it and hung her whole body on Ron. Tangerine and Ron's movements became more and more intense. The young and simple Kin Feng had no eyes to watch and continued to play his mobile game awkwardly. On the other side, at the FBI headquarters in Los Angeles, Hobbs, who was on the phone, slammed the phone on the table angrily. This bastard didn't answer my call. In front of him, several old men who looked weak stood in a row, as if they could be blown down by a gust of wind. Hobbs didn't dare to judge them by their appearance. These old guys actually wiped out one of his agent teams last night. Damn Ron, even after leaving, he didn't forget to cause trouble for me, Hobbs cursed inwardly. Among the old men, Andy, who dealt with Hobbs most often, said, "Sir, can we go now? I believe that as long as your men are not idiots, they will give you a satisfactory explanation in no time. But if we don't go back, we will miss the dance. There are several beautiful old ladies waiting for us there." It must be said that Andy has been with Ron for so long that he has finally learned to be bad. He is not ambiguous when he confronts Hobbs. "You killed my people, and you still want me to let you go?" Hobbs was so angry that if he was a little fatter and had a few more holes in his head, he would be no different from Majin Buu. But what if he doesn't want to let them go? Even if he doesn't need to read the final report, just look at the evidence now. With his many years of experience in handling cases, he can be 100% sure that there must be something wrong with his men who were killed. "Okay, you go back, but you are not allowed to leave Los Angeles. I need to be able to contact you at any time." After struggling for a long time, Hobbs finally decided to let them go. "Don't worry, we won't leave. If you want to find us, you can come anytime. You know where to find us," Guan Yuming assured quickly, "or, you can come to the dance with us. The dance is at the headquarters of the Special Operations Team. I heard from Ron that you are also single now. Maybe I can ask which friend has a single daughter and introduce her to you. I remember that my girlfriend has 2 sons. I can ask if there is a daughter. Otherwise, you can call me Dad first." Andy didn't bother to take advantage of him before leaving. Hobbs' eyes widened. Get lost. Time went back to yesterday afternoon, after Ron left Los Angeles, Ron's IRS headquarters. Because Valentine's Day is approaching, Ron gave everyone a holiday. At this moment, his headquarters only has a retired elderly club consisting of Andy, Hannibal, Mason and Guan Yuming. Yes, that's right, after the young people left, this place has become a retired elderly club. Andy, Hannibal and Mason, 3 old bachelors, simply treat this place as their own home. Hannibal and Guan Yuming were discussing cooking skills in the kitchen, while Andy and Mason simply set up a table in the hall to play chess. There was an old lady with a kind face sitting beside the chessboard, watching Andy's chess moves intently. "Do you think Mason's good friend has a chance with Andy?" Guan Yuming asked gossipingly while cooking. "How should I know? I only know that Mason and that woman seem to have known each other for a long time. When he was in prison, he talked about introducing Andy to a girlfriend. At that time, I thought he was joking. That woman looks good, how about it? Do you want me to talk to Mason and ask him to introduce you to a woman?" "No, I have Lynn, which is enough." Guan Yuming thought of the woman who had accompanied him from London to Los Angeles, and his heart warmed. "Why don't you let him introduce you to a companion? You seem to be alone too." "No, my place is already full of people." Hannibal thought of the winter when he and his sister depended on each other, and his hand was on his chest. His expression darkened. But at this moment, a bloody figure stumbled in. Mason and Guan Yuming quickly drew their pistols. Hannibal clenched his kitchen knife, and Andy took out a shotgun from under the table and pointed it at the newcomer. "Who is it?" "It's me." The figure approached, and under the light, Andy put on his glasses and finally recognized that it was Carl's brother, Ian. "Ian, who made you like this?" Andy asked in surprise. Seeing that it was one of their own, everyone finally relaxed their vigilance and put down their weapons. Mason waved to the woman who had just sat next to Andy, indicating that it was one of their own. The woman calmly put her hands down from her waist. "It's Alonzo," Ian replied weakly. "He's Jack's training officer, but he's actually a corrupt cop. Because Jack refused to go along with them, they attacked us. Jack is still in their hands. Contact Hank and the others quickly." "I'm going to save him now." "Alonzo?" Andy thought. "I seem to have heard of this name. Is he from the FBI?" "Yes, please, Andy, hurry up. Ron said you can help me when I encounter something." Ian threw himself on Andy's legs and begged. "Kid, sit down first." Guan Yuming helped Ian to a chair and checked his wound. Although Ian's wound looked scary, fortunately it was all skin injuries and almost nothing serious. Guan Yuming simply bandaged him. "I need to know what happened. Where are they? How many people are there?" As the highest commander when Ron was away, Andy analyzed calmly. "There are 5 of them, all senior narcotics police officers, at the home of the drug dealer they killed today." Ian thought for a moment and said with difficulty, "Let's get Arthur and Hank here, otherwise it will be too difficult to deal with them." "Are you sure there are only 5 of them?" Mason suddenly interrupted and asked. Ian nodded in confusion. Then he found that everyone, except himself, was laughing. "If there are only 5 of them, there's probably no need to bother those little guys." "Ian, do you remember the location of that place?" Ian nodded, and Mason turned the vase on the table. With a creak, the hidden secret door opened, revealing the arsenal inside. Mason picked up the rifle, pulled the barrel with a click, and checked it with a satisfied look. "Which old buddy is free to go out with me now and do some pre-meal exercise?" Chapter 252, America's Strongest Senior Club. Late at night, 2 pickup trucks were parked side by side on the road at the intersection of a single-family mansion in the suburbs of Los Angeles. The mansion was the residence of Roger, a famous drug dealer in Los Angeles, but Roger himself was no longer in it. In the afternoon, Jack's training officer Alonzo led his men and Jackie in to raid here. Not only did they kill Roger, but they also dug out a full $2 million in cash from under the floor. But when they were dividing the spoils, Jack's sense of justice broke out and he opposed this obvious black police behavior. Ian grew up in the slums and was accustomed to this kind of black-eating black behavior. He even saw a lot of black police like Alonzo, but at the critical moment, he still chose to stand with his friend. In the end, Ian successfully escaped under Jack's cover, but Jack was caught by them. "Is it that house?" Guan Yuming observed the house in the distance with a telescope while sipping the porridge in the thermos. Ian's eyes widened. "Is this person reliable?" It's no wonder that Ian had such doubts. Guan Yuming looked the same as the Chinese elderly he had seen in Chinatown before. Who has ever seen an elite agent drinking preserved egg and lean meat porridge from a thermos cup while on a mission? To be honest, if Ron hadn't told him again and again that he could ask the old men in the base to handle anything, he would have run away. The neighbors in his neighborhood looked much more reliable than these old men. I dare not say anything else, but at least they ran faster than them. But he still chose to believe Ron. After all, the significance of that man to his family was simply a miracle. That's right there. When I left, I saw that Jack was still alive. I guess they didn't want to harm his life before they caught me, because they wanted to keep his life to make a deal with me. Ian's judgment was relatively calm, and he didn't lose his composure because his friend was caught. Guan Yuming nodded with satisfaction. This kid is still a promising talent. That's a bit troublesome. If you don't have any friends trapped inside, we can just blow up the house and make sure everyone inside is dead. Now, we can only storm it. Hannibal leaned over from the back seat and said disappointedly after observing with night vision goggles. There was no light on in the car, but Ian clearly saw that Hannibal's eyes seemed to be glowing with a cold green light. Strike, that's a good idea, but in order to ensure the safety of the hostages, I need someone to sneak in. How about you go? The car next to him rolled down the window, revealing Andy's face, who took over the temporary command. When all the regular combatants were on vacation, Andy served as the commander of this special forces team temporarily formed by retired old people. Not only because he had the highest position among all the people present and came the earliest, but most importantly, he had basically no combat power, so everyone simply gave him the position of commander to prevent him from running around and causing trouble. No problem. Hannibal opened the car door, put a set of table knives from the kitchen into his bulletproof vest, and then put on an old-fashioned coat. He looked just like the dying old man you can see everywhere on the street. Ian's eyes widened. Don't you need to carry a gun? No, these things are easier to use, and killing people depends on the brain, not violence. If violence alone is effective, then Schwarzenegger should be the President of the United States now, not just a governor. Hannibal smiled coldly, and his unnaturally clean teeth made Ian shudder. Be careful, Mason and I will make some noise outside to create an opportunity for you. Guan Yuming pressed Hannibal's arm hard, and Uncle Hannibal gave him a look that said he didn't need to worry, and walked towards the villa. With every step he took, his waist bent a little. After walking 10 meters, he could no longer see the sharpness when he spoke. Ian actually felt a little strange for a moment, because he looked like an old man who came out for a walk after dinner. Guan Yuming and Mason also took their equipment without saying a word, and each of them carried their backpacks and dispersed to both sides. Do you need my help? Ian looked at the hunched figures of the old men with a little worry, and asked Andy. He was getting more and more unsure. He even felt that even if he went home and asked little Carl to come with him, it would be much better than taking a group of old men who were about to go into the coffin to take risks. Don't worry, kid, these people are more powerful than you think, Andy, who knew them best, said easily. Victoria next to him took the initiative to shake Andy's hand. Come on, kid, come to our car. I also baked some Andy's favorite cookies. I believe you will like them too. Ian got into the car at a loss. He felt that these two people were not here to save people, but felt that they were just here for a picnic. There was silence all around. The location of the dead drug dealer's residence was not terrible or bad. In this area, except for his single-family villa, there were only a few houses in total. Large areas were vacant. Looking out from the house, everything outside could be seen at a glance. Boss, do you think that guy has called the police? One of Alonzo's men asked worriedly by the window. Impossible, I'm a senior agent. If he goes out on a police mission, I can't help but know about it. He will definitely come back. The long wait made Alonzo more and more impatient, and he kicked Jack, who was tied to the ground, hard. Jack, whose mouth was blocked, groaned from his nose. Seeing that the time to pay the Russians for his life was getting closer and closer, he could only pray that the guy would come now. Or, when he came, he would run into those damn Russian gangsters, so that they could kill the guy. Boss. Someone is coming, his men growled, and Alonzo quickly moved behind the window and looked out sideways, but he didn't see Ian, only a hunched old man outside. Damn it, we are waiting for that brat Ian. Not the old man who eats too much and comes out for a walk at night. Alonzo slapped his men on the head angrily. Don't worry about this old guy. I only want you to pay attention to Ian. If it weren't for you guys, you wouldn't have let him escape during the day. Before Alonzo finished speaking, there was a sudden burst of gunfire, and a string of bullets came in from the window. The nearest bullet almost grazed his face. FXXK. FXXK. That kid is back, Alonzo cursed, and his body honestly shrank back from the window, shouting at his men, he's at 3 o'clock, Lanky, Jesse, you two go kill him. I'll cover you. Alonzo suddenly dodged and fired a few shots at the place where the gunshots had just been heard from another window, immediately suppressing the firepower point that had just fired so that it could not fire a single shot. At this time, he finally had a chance to observe the situation outside. The old man who was walking just now had already fallen to the ground when the first gunshot was fired. His life or death was unknown. The firing point that had just fired the gun was silent. He immediately ordered, he must still be outside. Go quickly. Without saying a word, the two elite men who had just been called by Alonzo jumped out of the windows on the left and right sides with their weapons. Alonzo was very experienced and tried to hide behind the wall as much as possible while observing the situation outside through the mirror. Guan Yuming, who had just fired a gun, saw the two people coming out of the house and smiled. The first step of the plan was successful. He threw the rifle behind him and jumped down from the roof of the house. His agility was completely unlike that of an old man who was almost 60 years old. As soon as he landed, he seemed to take advantage of his short stature and found a big tree that could be hugged by two people to hide his figure. After a while, one of the men just walked to the tree, and Guan Yuming quickly pulled out a dagger and wiped his neck. Before the subordinate could even scream, his neck was cut, and his breathless body fell heavily with an expression of disbelief. On the other side, the subordinate who found something wrong immediately turned around and saw Guan Yuming. He immediately raised his gun and was about to shoot, but Guan Yuming did not mean to dodge at all. He just pointed behind him with a mischievous smile. With just this little trick, you still want to fool me? I won't be fooled. The subordinate thought so and was about to pull the trigger. Suddenly, there was a pain in the back of his head, and then an irresistible dizziness swept over his body, and he fainted. Beautiful. Guan Yuming gave Mason a thumbs up, and the other party returned the same gesture. You are not bad either. Going forward, walking up a slope, it was the villa where Alonzo was. The two old men smiled at each other, put on night vision glasses at the same time, threw their backpacks in front of them, took out one smoke bomb after another from them, and threw them up to the flat ground above the slope. The flat ground outside the villa was instantly filled with thick smoke from 7 or 8 smoke bombs in different positions. A sense of unease surged into Alonzo's heart. Ian, that stupid boy, would never do this. He found another helper. As soon as this idea came up, it was immediately confirmed by a string of bullets hitting the wall next to him. Don't show your head. They have thermal imaging. They can see us through the smoke, Alonzo shouted hurriedly, bent over and ran to the bathroom to get a basin of cold water and poured it over his head. This is a method he has heard of. It is said that it can affect the effect of thermal imaging, but the specific effect is unknown. It can only be said that everything is up to fate. Ian, Jack is still in my hands. If you don't want him to die, throw away your weapon and come out immediately. The view outside the villa was almost covered by smoke. Alonzo suddenly had an idea, grabbed a subordinate, pointed the gun at his head and blocked himself and shouted. Since the smoke blocked the view, you must not be able to see whether the hostage I pointed the gun at is a real hostage or a fake hostage. It must be said that Alonzo is indeed a veteran agent. If he had used a little of his intelligence in the right way, he would not have ended up like this. However, his shouting was only answered by silence. Just when Alonzo was getting more and more unsure, he suddenly heard a bang sound of something falling to the ground. Oh no. It's a grenade. Alonzo slowly threw his men to the ground, and of course his men followed suit and fell to the ground. But after waiting for a while, there was no sound of the grenade. Alonzo raised his head and looked around the floor, and finally fixed his sight on a stone. FXXK. I was fooled again. Who is outside? How can this tactical experience be so proficient? Alonzo felt a little shocked. This level is not much worse than the military's Sea Leopard Commando. However, before he could come up with an answer, two figures flashed out of the windows on both sides almost at the same time, holding automatic rifles and shooting into the house. From two directions, two rifles formed a crossfire network. The airtight bullets almost instantly swept his two men into sieves. Alonzo no longer cared about the hostage Jack lying on the ground. He quickly opened the door and rushed out. But just as he went out, he felt a chill on his waist. Looking down, a sharp kitchen knife had already stabbed him. Alonzo didn't have time to think about it, and quickly took out his gun and turned around. But just as the hand holding the gun stretched out halfway, a cold light flashed, and the whole hand, including the M1911 pistol held in the hand, flew into the sky. Alonzo had time to see the face of the person who stabbed him for the first time, and immediately showed a horrified expression. This turned out to be the old man who was walking outside at the beginning. Hannibal stretched out his tongue and licked the blood on the kitchen knife, frowning. Your blood is really stinky, not even qualified to be a food. Just another knife flashed. Alonzo fell to the ground, blood bubbles coming out of the wounds on his mouth and throat. At this time, the thick fog created by the smoke bomb finally dissipated. Ian looked at Alonzo's body on the ground in disbelief. Is that it? What else do you want? Mason shrugged his shoulders. He's just a small policeman. How troublesome can it be? This amount of exercise is not even considered exercise before meals, but I'm still hungry. What are we going to eat later? Andy also followed and asked Hannibal. Hannibal pointed to his face with a smile. Andy, the lipstick marks on your face are not wiped clean. Really? Andy calmly took out a tissue from his pocket and wiped it on his face with pride. Then have you ever thought that I might be left for someone to see? Responding to the love of a lady is also part of a gentleman's duty. Wait, who is that? Does Alonzo have other helpers? Guan Yuming saw a car coming so fast that it didn't hit the road from a distance and frowned. Let's run. Ian looked at his watch and said in shock, that's the Russian gang. Alonzo killed one of them before, and he robbed a drug dealer's money just to give it to them to buy his life. Wait. What about Victoria? Andy immediately ran towards his car nervously. But then, he would never forget the scene for the rest of his life. Just when the gangster's car was about to hit his car, Victorino suddenly took a submachine gun and fired wildly at the oncoming car. The bullets made a series of bullet holes on the car body, but it still hit the car without slowing down. And at the moment when the car was about to hit, Victoria threw away the submachine gun, grabbed the roof of the car with both hands and turned hard, and flew upside down into the sky, and at the same time, she did not forget to throw a grenade through the window. Boom! The gangster's car was blown into a fireball. Victoria landed and walked towards Andy, and she didn't even have the mood to look at the burning car behind her. Andy looked back and found that his three old friends had not moved at all. Did you know this a long time ago? Good night, Andy. Chapter 253, Big Liar. Tang Ren. Junior brother, your cell phone seems to be ringing. Tang Ren pointed at the screen next to Ron and asked, looking at him with envy. Although these foreign girls in the car were all hired by him, they all rushed to stick to Ron, who was more in line with their tastes. Ron looked down at the name on the caller ID. He's just a troublemaker. There's no need to pay attention to him. Ron drank the champagne from the glass of the blonde beauty with big waves next to him, waved his big hand and shook his head at the two women next to him. Come on, keep playing music, keep dancing. Hobbs, who was far away in Los Angeles, was so angry that he broke another landline phone. Looking at the few indifferent old people in front of him, he had no choice but to let his men release them first. It's not fair. They were obviously hired by me. Why are they all around you? Tang Ren shouted dissatisfiedly, but unfortunately the woman in the car didn't understand Chinese and didn't know what he was talking about. There's no way, whether it's a man or a woman. In fact, they are visual animals. Ron calmly pulled away the woman's hand that was wandering dishonestly on his body. If he didn't block it, with the boldness of American women, Ron had no doubt that she would perform a live sex show with Ron in the car. But your appearance, what's wrong with my appearance? Am I not handsome? Tang Ren leaned forward with an ugly face and asked. You say he's handsome, but he is a little bit unconventional. Where is Sister Xiang? Qin Feng finally broke free from the two black men around him and came over to join the group chat. Waiting at a cocktail party, Tang Ren lied without even a draft, and his face didn't even blush. I'll take you around these 2 days, the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty. Ho ha ho ho. I want to see Quinn's manuscript. Quinn? And he's doing it with his hands. Tang Ren looked at Qin Feng carefully as if he didn't know him. Old Qin, you learned bad things in China. It's Ellery Queen. Qin Feng had just finished speaking when WeChat rang suddenly. Ron missed the voice so much when he heard it again after being reborn for so many years. He poked his head out from the encirclement of the two women with a malicious expression. WeChat? You made an appointment just after arriving. This is Crime Master. Qin Feng could be casual in front of Tang Ren, but he was still a little restrained when talking to Ron. This is a global detective reasoning online community. Many people upload real cases on it for everyone to discuss. I heard that there are also many people playing it in the United States. Do you want me to download one for you? Forget it. Ron waved his hand to show that he was not interested. I am no longer at the age to be interested in reasoning games. For me, as long as I can solve the case, it doesn't matter what means are used. In fact, in the cases I have handled, reasoning is the least efficient means. Then what methods does Mr. Ron use to solve the case? Can you teach me? Qin Feng expressed great interest in Ron's method of solving the case. This is easy. Normally, when I put the muzzle of the gun into the suspect's mouth, they will confess everything. If they still refuse to talk, I will use other means, such as tiger chair, pepper spray and so on. How about it? Do you want to try it? It's really cool. Ron showed a sly smile, and Qin Feng shrank back in fear. What if you catch the wrong person? Catch the wrong person? I have never caught a wrong one, Ron said proudly. You still don't know enough about my methods. I should let you see them clearly when I have the chance. Don't worry, even if it's a bear, I have plenty of ways to make it admit that it's a rabbit. The rookie Qin Feng shrank his neck in fear, and even dared not show off his proud community ranking. The blonde with the big wavy blonde hair, who had been coveting him for a long time, seized the opportunity and quickly hugged him into her arms. I like this kind of handsome man the most. Soon, the car drove to the door of a hotel, and a Chinese waiter helped them open the door. Tang Ren carelessly embraced Luo En and Qin Feng. Come on, everyone is waiting for you. Entering the door, it is a hotel with a strong Chinese style. There are all kinds of people in the lobby. When they saw the groom bringing people in, no one stood up to greet them, but stared at them with unfriendly expressions. At this time, even the most nervous people should have found something wrong, let alone Luo En and Qin Feng, who are always smart. However, unlike Luo En, who knew the plot and kept his composure, Qin Feng instantly felt that he was deceived. Are all these people here to attend the wedding? Yes, they are all Oshiyong's relatives and friends. Let's have fun together tomorrow. Tang Ren took off his sunglasses and pretended to be familiar with the people in the lobby. Unfortunately, no one was willing to pay attention to him. Who is that person? Qin Feng pointed with his chin. Following the direction of his chin, there sat a Chinese girl, who was about the age of a high school student, typing away on a laptop with both hands. Tang Ren rolled his eyes and continued to fool around. That's Oshiyong's cousin. What about that burly guy? Qin Feng then pointed to the big white man who was exercising his biceps with a chair, his eyes full of disbelief. That's Oshiyong's ex-boyfriend. Tang Ren continued to make up. You know, Oshiyong had a very strong taste before she got together with me. Qin Feng finally couldn't bear it anymore, and simply pointed to a handsome yellow man who was drinking. When he saw Qin Feng pointing at him, the man raised his glass elegantly. That's Oshiyong's cousin. What about that one? Qin Feng was simply defeated by Tang Ren's shamelessness, and pointed to the fat woman who was reading a book. That's Oshiyong's grandmother. Tang Ren had just finished speaking when the fat woman put down her book, revealing her dark face. Tang Ren didn't wait for Qin Feng to speak and quickly made up for it. She has lived in Sanaya for many years, so she got Tanju. What do you mean by you? Tang Ren pushed away Qin Feng's hand that was pointing at him guiltily. You should get over the jet lag first. Let's go. Let's go. Qin Feng finally couldn't bear it anymore and exploded. Is it me or you who has the problem? Ron, why don't you do anything about him? No, I think it's quite interesting to watch him talking nonsense. You continue. Ron held his hands, and he had been in the mode of watching the show since just now. Tang Ren saw the opportunity and quickly pretended to be nothing. What's wrong with me? Are you getting married tomorrow? Yes, where's Sister Oshiyong? Qin Feng's attack hit Tang Ren's vital point, and Tang Ren was stuck for a moment. She look, Qin Feng pointed at Tang Ren's eyes. When I mention her, you glance to the lower left. This is a typical sign of lying. There is no atmosphere of marriage at all. It is impossible for everyone to ignore a groom. Qin Feng looked around and finally fixed his eyes on Tang Ren's face. The latter took a step back guiltily. The most important thing is, Qin Feng took out his mobile phone and made the final decision. How can you get married tomorrow when you even have your fortune told before taking a bath? The calendar on the mobile phone clearly stated that tomorrow would be a bad day. Ron couldn't help but applaud Qin Feng's reasoning. Good reasoning, but I believe that senior brother will give me a reasonable explanation, right? Chapter 254, Detective. I don't know if pretenders are a common problem among people who like reasoning. Among the people Ron knows, including the foul-mouthed gentleman in London, they all like to restore their reasoning process in public after giving an answer. You tricked me to come here for a case, right? Qin Feng insisted. The first person at the door is all Chinese. The special nature of the owner of this house, my cousin uses a mobile server whose information processing speed is dozens of times that of an ordinary computer. It uses the Linux system to input commands to control the computer. This reminds me of Kiko, a Hong Kong female hacker ranked 5th on the Master of Reasoning. She relies on hacking into the police system to obtain massive information to increase the rate of solving cases. She can hack every penny in your account. Tisk, I don't have a penny in my account, Tang Ren said. Barefoot people are not afraid of those wearing shoes. Not bad, not bad. What else? Ron took out a small notebook and began to record it. Hacking into the police system to check information. This is definitely a crime, right? We can chat later and see if we can increase some extra income. M37K knife, B9 belt, Daniel combat boots, these are all commonly used equipment for the U.S. military. That should be the 9th-ranked American Special Forces detective, Buffalo Billy. Qin Feng cast his eyes on the muscular man who is exercising his biceps with a chair. He advocates using violence to solve all crimes. For someone like this, I can beat 10 of him with my Mo family boxing. Tang Ren waved his hand disdainfully, and his voice was a little loud when he spoke, which attracted Buffalo Billy's angry glare. What are you looking at? If you look again, do you believe I will crush your head with a scissor kick? Buffalo Billy put down the chair he used as a dumbbell and walked towards this side with a bad look. Tang Ren quickly hid behind Ron, but just when Buffalo Billy shifted his gaze to Ron, the muscular man suddenly jumped back like a frightened rabbit. Long time no see, Billy, Ron greeted him with a smile. Long time no see, BB waved awkwardly. Well, I remembered that I still have a case to deal with. I'll go and do it first. We'll talk when we get back. After saying that, he ran away without waiting for Ron to stop him. Tang Ren poked his head out from behind Ron. Do you know him? Of course, he's my neighbor. We used to play together when we were young. The chickens he raised often chased my brother around. Ron laughed as if he remembered something interesting. Speaking of which, I have to thank him for often exercising with me. Otherwise, I might not have thought of becoming an agent. It is well known that the children on both sides of the Cooper family are fools. Well, it may be a bit too much to say fools. Let's put it another way. They are not very smart. But not being smart also has its advantages, that is, being stubborn. If you tell them something, what benefits will come from doing it this way, and if the other party believes you enough, then he will keep doing it. Because they don't have such a smart brain, they don't have so many extra ideas, but it's easier to focus on one thing. So for a long time, people in the town would see three children, led by Ron, doing all kinds of professional exercises since childhood. Therefore, the three of them have developed strong physiques since childhood. But the difference is that Ron has higher wisdom, so he has the position he has today. As for the other two people, one is the son of luck, so lucky that Ron is jealous, and he inexplicably owns nearly 100 chain restaurants, and the other became a private detective after retiring from the army. But if this kind of IQ ranks ninth in your community, it doesn't look good. Well, it's okay. Qin Feng was a little embarrassed by Ron's question. At this moment, another nervous woman came over, staring at Tang Ren's face carefully, and muttered like a lunatic, I saw a man, a lying man. Did you see it? Even the Indonesian psychic detective, Kuna, can see that you are a liar. I think this is just a charlatan, maybe even less reliable than Brother Tang Ren. Ron pouted disappointedly. I say, what the hell is your community of reasoning masters? How can a mentally retarded charlatan become a detective? Where is she ranked? Currently ranked 7th, when saying the ranking. Qin Feng himself was a little embarrassed. The behavior of this group of people really didn't look like normal people, so he quickly tried to make up for it. Qin Feng pointed at the Asian man in the corner. That guy is quite capable. He is the Japanese detective who has been competing with me for the second place. Noto how? Tang Ren asked puzzledly. How did you recognize him? Are you stupid? Ron took Qin Feng's phone, swiping it and rolling his eyes. In this community, in the top 50 rankings, besides Qin Feng, there is only this Asian. If he is not, who else could it be? Tang Ren leaned his head over. Then who is this Pai Dan? What Pai Dan? That's Q. It's an invisible Canadian ID. It's not known whether he is among this group of people. Moreover, these people have 3 minutes to check the entrance of the passage respectively. It is obvious that everyone is waiting for an important person. Qin Feng took back his phone, searched on Baidu, and immediately got the answer. The owner of this house is not difficult to find. It's my 7th uncle Wu Ziyan, the supreme leader of all Chinese halls in North America, the famous godfather of Chinatown. His grandson Wu Zihao died 4 days ago. It was not you who asked me to come here, but him. Right, I do know this person. It's a bit exaggerated to say that he is the top leader of all Chinese gangs. It's just what others say. You can't believe everything on Baidu, kid. Ron patted Qin Feng's shoulder and stared at Tang Ren sharply. So, my dear senior brother, are you not going to give us an explanation, junior brother? Lao Qin, Tang Ren, who was exposed by Qin Feng, saw that the situation was not good, and hurriedly stood in front of the two of them, hugged Ron's waist, and cried, a Xiong got married, and the groom was not me, it's this guy. Tang Ren found a Xiong's wedding photo, not as handsome as me, not as thin as me, not as elegant as me, with a face full of philandering, and dressed so rustic, but he is richer than me, except that he looks philandering. I can't agree with your other opinions. Ron looked at this familiar face and commented. After speaking, he raised his leg and prepared to walk out again, but Tang Ren hurriedly stopped him again. Wait a minute, junior brother. Ron stopped. 5 million. 5 million US dollars, Tang Ren shouted in an exaggerated tone. 7th uncle's grandson died, and the case was solved. 5 million. How about we split it equally among the three of us? Chapter 255 Blood is thicker than water. So, what does this have to do with Ah Xiong? Ron pushed Tang Ren aside and continued to move forward. $5 million, don't you want it? Tang Ren stood in front of Ron again, holding Qin Feng with one hand, and stretched out a 5-fingered palm, gesturing back and forth in front of Ron. 5 million? It sounds like a lot. Ron's mouth pulled up a sly smile, but don't forget, this money was earned in the United States, so remember to pay an unexpected income tax. The tax rate is about, fuck. You actually collected taxes on your senior brother, Tang Ren said angrily, but when he saw Ron clench his fist, he immediately hid behind Qin Feng in shame. Don't worry, even after paying taxes, there will still be a lot of money left after paying the 5 million. Ron rolled his eyes at the senior brother who was knocking on the door, took out a business card and handed it to Tang Ren. If you really get the 5 million, you can call Paul. He is the manager of the Gold Club. As long as you have money, he can provide you with a feeling comparable to heaven, enough to make you forget all the girls in the world. Seeing that Ron couldn't be fooled, Tang Ren still set his sights on Qin Feng, and immediately changed his face to speak righteously. Old Qin, how can you do this? I'm your uncle, dear cousin, blood is thicker than water, I want to see Quinn's manuscript. Qin Feng obviously didn't bite either. He was about to leave with Ron with his suitcase, but Tang Ren suddenly knelt down. With one hand on each side, he hugged Ron and Qin Feng's thighs tightly. Junior brother, Lao Qin, do you know what Shawshank means to me? Tang Ren said with a hint of tears in his voice. I am willing to give my life's blood and energy to her, and I will never fall in love with any woman again in my life. Okay, I promise to help you, okay? Ron pulled Tang Ren's head helplessly. Just don't get your snot on my pants, it looks so disgusting. Originally, Ron was ready for a tug of war with Tang Ren, but who knew that this time, Tang Ren was easily pushed away with just a slight push. Why was it so easy this time? It's just that his eyes were a little dull. Ron looked up and followed Tang Ren's eyes, only to see a tall Chinese woman passing by them. Shawshank. Tang Ren stood up and chased after her like a lost soul. Qin Feng frowned. He's always like this. You're his cousin, don't you know? Qin Feng was helpless, carrying his suitcase and about to follow Tang Ren, but saw Ron walking somewhere else. Aren't you coming with me? Wait a minute, you and Tang Ren go check out the situation first. I just saw an acquaintance. Go say hello, and disguise yourself. Ron looked at Billy, who took the opportunity to sneak into the bathroom, revealing a thoughtful look. My identity is quite special, it's better not to attract their attention. Although these so-called detective enthusiasts don't have much ability, it would still be a bit troublesome if someone finds out my identity. Among all the detectives sitting there was already an old acquaintance, Billy. Ron was not sure if there were other people who knew him. He just wanted to join in the fun, but didn't want to attract the attention of those who were interested. Fortunately, when they just entered the hall, their group did not attract too much attention, and the others were mostly doing their own things. In the bathroom, the sound of water splashing. Bison Billy had just relaxed and was about to zip up, when a big hand suddenly fell on his shoulder. Long time no see. Billy saw a familiar face in the mirror above the urinal. It was Ron, his childhood shadow, and suddenly, the faucet that had just stopped running started to urinate again. Didn't you just say that you still had a case to deal with? Why are you here now? I'm going to relieve myself first. I'll go over now, Ron. Billy's voice was already a little tearful. It's not that Billy is too cowardly, but it's really not easy to grow up with someone like Ron. Although he knows that every time Ron bullies him, it's for various reasons to let him exercise his body. And it's because of Ron's bullying that he can thrive in his career as a special forces soldier. But no matter how you put it, he lives under Ron's shadow, and he is not as honest as Forrest Gump. So every time he plays the role of Ron's sparring partner or sandbag, how can there be no shadow? Don't worry, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Don't you plan to catch up with me? Ron patted Billy on the shoulder. Yes, Billy turned back in a very standard military posture, just like a soldier who received an order. Ron quickly stepped aside. Hey, can you put that thing back first? Zip it up, by the way. I don't want to be peed on by you, sir. Yes, sir. Billy saluted, then straightened his hands, retracted them, and zipped them up. All the movements were orderly. If you didn't know, you might think it was some new weapon-holding movement. At ease, Ron had no choice but to use the military training command he gave Billy in his childhood. Relax, I know why you came here. Even if you have other cases, I don't think there's anything more tempting than $5 million, right? You are here for the prize money too. Hearing Ron mention the prize money, Billy was a little frustrated. If you make a move, the prize money will definitely be yours, and others will not have the slightest chance. It's been like this since childhood. Forget it, I'd better withdraw from the competition. Billy was about to back out, but Ron didn't intend to continue bullying him on this. Don't worry, Billy, I have no interest in the $5 million. I just came here for vacation and to see my senior brother and master, the old man who taught me kung fu when I was a child. Billy got excited. If Ron didn't participate, wouldn't it mean he still had a chance? But Ron's next sentence pushed him to the bottom again. My senior brother seems to be very interested in this bonus, so I quit. Billy thought about the rich bonus and asked tentatively with a little reluctance. That's not necessary. Ron waved his hand. He is interested, but not me. I won't interfere in anything in your competition. You can compete with him based on your strength. I have something else to ask you, whatever it is, just tell me. As long as I can do it, I will definitely do it beautifully for you. When Billy heard that Ron was going to participate in the competition, he patted his chest happily and promised. First, keep my identity confidential. I don't want too many people to know that I'm from the IRS. Ron pointed a finger and Billy nodded quickly. Second, cooperate with me when I need you. I don't care about the mere $5 million prize money, but I am quite interested in the taxes owed by this New York gang. Chapter 256, New York Green Arrow Online. On the streets of Los Angeles, Ron went to the largest anime-related store in New York that he found on Google. During this time, he also called Leonard, who had already arrived in Switzerland and lived a happy life with Penny Sheldon as a family of 3. He asked if there were any superheroes who could cover their faces without wearing tights. Although Ron had shown up once at the Detective Reasoning Conference, written as a reasoning enthusiasts conference, where even the most evil people think they are awesome, he did not attract anyone's attention. In addition to Billy, who had been warned by him, probably only the coquettish Japanese man noticed him. But unfortunately, due to the strange aesthetics of American comics, among the truly famous heroes, there are really few who do not wear tights, except for V and Batman that he had already used. The final result of the discussion was that Ron had to buy a black and green hooded sweatshirt and paint half of his face with black military camouflage where his eyes would be. Although he couldn't hide it from people who were very familiar with Ron, it was still no problem to deal with strangers. Sir, this outfit really suits you. I've never seen a cosplayer who is so suitable for the role of Green Arrow. Are you free tonight? Would you consider coming to our Valentine's Day party? I guarantee that your character will definitely win the championship. After that, I can also take you to see my collection. I guarantee that for any anime fan, it is the most precious treasure in the world. The owner of the anime store was flushed with excitement. The handsome face like Lee Pace kept approaching. If Ron hadn't kept his distance, the male owner with unclear sexual orientation might have touched his chest muscles. However, Ron had no interest in this. Forget about the party. I bought this outfit purely for my nephew's birthday. That's a pity, the boss sighed. He didn't know whether he felt sorry that Ron couldn't attend his Valentine's Day party, or that he couldn't be Ron's lover, or both. Anyway, Ron planned to get away from this pervert as soon as possible, but just as he paid and was about to leave, he was stopped by the boss again. Wait a minute, customer, you forgot your bow and arrow. The boss took out a bow and arrow from under the table. How can Green Arrow not take a bow and arrow? Buy a costume here and get a bow and arrow for free, Ron said in surprise. Of course not all of them are worth it. This special benefit is only for some people. The boss winked at Ron, and Ron felt a chill. The boss continued, this is an eagle bow produced by Oneida Company. Although it is not a bow with high efficiency in the eyes of professional players, it is still a good thing. The boss took the opportunity to hang a bow and quiver on Ron and touched Ron's body. Seeing that this dead pervert finally gave him a good bow, Ron finally resisted and did not take out his weapon to blow his head off on the spot. Okay, thank you, boss. Ron hurriedly said goodbye. On the other side, the amateur detective team also began to analyze the case under the leadership of Officer Chen. Listen, this is the first and last time I will share this information with you. Officer Chen walked to the front of the stage with the top secret information of the police. To be honest, this kind of amateur reasoning enthusiasts has always been the most disgusting existence of all law enforcement officers. If possible, she definitely doesn't want to deal with them. But there is no way. The mayor needs the votes of the Chinese, so the police can only passively compromise. Even if they know that the gangs are involved in some illegal activities, they can only turn a blind eye. I don't know if this can be regarded as the evil result of excessive freedom. I'll just tell you once, Officer Chen frowned slightly when he saw Tang Ren and Billy playing around below. The day before yesterday, Jason Wu's body was found in a temple in Chinatown at 10:10 a.m. The staff who opened the door found that someone had cut open his chest and taken out his heart. The murderer had cut a Y-shaped incision on the body, and there were no fingerprints left at the scene, but there are two very important points. First, A large amount of sevoflurane residue was collected from the mouth, nose and left hand of the deceased, which can prove that the deceased was dragged into the crime scene after being knocked unconscious. Second, the reaction on the wound of the deceased showed that the deceased died after being anesthetized and having his heart removed while still alive. Are there any other questions? At the same time, the same information was also transmitted to Ron's laptop. Ron stared at the photo on the computer screen in silence for a long time, and finally spoke again. So this killer is left-handed. This is just a possibility. Of course, it is not ruled out that the murderer deliberately disguised himself like this to mislead the police in order to hide his identity, right? You have deduced this much after watching for a long time. Peggy's sweet female voice came out from the computer speakers. I've said it before, I'm not good at reasoning. Ron rubbed his hair with a headache. Ever since he asked Peggy for help and asked her to help him get the police information, the New York police's technology was not enough for Peggy to beat them alone. But after Peggy got the information Ron wanted, she didn't give it to him directly, but suddenly had an idea and asked Ron to play a reasoning game with her. In the name of training Ron's reasoning ability. After all, I got too little information. I need more to make a judgment. Does the police have a profile of the killer? Although Ron relied on his advantage of knowing the plot and knew who the killer was, he didn't dare to show any flaws in front of Peggy, who is very smart. With that girl's brain, it was only a matter of time before she deduced his identity as a time traveler. Of course there is. It happens to be the profile of the killer made by Officer Chen, who was invited by Uncle Key to help. I will send it to you now. Peggy typed on the keyboard for a while, and Ron's computer immediately received a profile of the murderer, male, Chinese, between 25 and 40 years old, single, with a stable source of income, educated, legitimate occupation, not necessarily aggressive in appearance, and may even be a good man, with relatives around him passing away under abnormal circumstances. Ron looked at the few short sentences on the screen, and his originally frowned brows did not relax, but became more and more wrinkled. How is it? My great detective, do you have any new discoveries? Peggy's teasing voice sounded. I found that compared with the Los Angeles police, the New York police are a bunch of idiots, Ron said with a long sigh of relief. Peggy's eyes lit up. Did you find the flaw so quickly? What do you say? Ron rubbed his temples. He didn't know if he had been with Sherlock for a long time, but he seemed to have become smarter. He tried to recall the words Sherlock usually mocked him and began to organize his thoughts. First of all, I agree with the judgment that the murderer is a male. If the murderer is not a male, it is difficult to drag a person who has fainted for such a long distance. Yes, the distance from the parking place to the kitchen god temple is definitely not something a woman can accomplish, unless she is a female athlete who exercises regularly, then what? But I doubt the Chinese identity. This can only be regarded as a possibility, but it is not 100% certain. Ron recalled the plot. If he was asked to deduce directly based on the evidence, it would indeed be a bit difficult, but if he knew the result and worked backwards, everything seemed so simple. What's more, the profile of this case is full of loopholes. Even if he didn't know the result, if Ron was asked to investigate the case, he would not completely believe this profile. Then what race do you think the murderer is? That cannot be determined for the time being, but what is certain is that the person who would choose such a special location as the kitchen god temple as the murder site must be Chinese or someone who has a deep understanding of Chinese culture. So, now we can narrow down the suspects to Chinese and everyone who knows about Chinese culture. This includes everyone who has traveled to China, borrowed or bought related books, and has had a romantic relationship with an Asian. Congratulations, based on the above 2 points, you have successfully narrowed down the suspects to 62,177 people. Under Peggy's remote control, 2 large circles appeared on Ron's computer. They were the citizen information that Peggy had selected based on the 2 conditions Ron had just given. The overlapping part of the 2 large circles was the candidate who met the above conditions. Single and with a stable source of income, these 2 points are easy to understand. The deceased came from a prominent family and the things on him were very valuable, but nothing was missing at the scene, so the murderer definitely did not kill for money. From the background check of the deceased, we know that he was a very kind second-generation rich man, and there is no possibility that he was killed for revenge, but these 2 points are useless for the time being. We can speculate on the murderer's motive later. Now I am a little interested in the latter one. Are you saying that the murderer has received a proper education? How do you know that? Peggy asked knowingly. It's very simple. Look at this wound. Ron enlarged the photo of the wound. The incision of the wound is very smooth and complete. It is obviously the result of one-time formation. The position and angle are just right. There are only two types of people who can cause this kind of wound. They are doctors who specialize in performing surgery on patients or butchers who specialize in slaughtering animals. But considering that the wound is on the human body, I am more inclined to the former hypothesis. It's worthy of the man I like. Peggy's eyes were blurred and almost squeezed out water, and another part of her body was already flooded. Your progress is simply amazing. Is this also what you learned from Sherlock? Of course, Peggy took the initiative to find a reasonable explanation for him. How could Ron not agree? Then congratulations, now you have successfully narrowed down the suspects to 117 people. Come on, you will find the murderer soon. Why are there still so many? Ron said dissatisfiedly. He thought that with this one item, he could lock the suspects into a 2-digit range, but he didn't expect it to be 3 digits. Peggy took another pillow with Ron's photo on it and rubbed it back and forth, explaining, we can't help it. Traveling to Asia is the cheapest route, and China is one of the must-see destinations. In fact, 1/5 of New York doctors have traveled to China. Okay, I noticed one more thing. Ron sent the search page to Peggy. 2 weeks ago, a white female body was found on the bank of the Hudson River with the same Y-shaped wound as this victim. I think the two cases are somewhat related, except that she lost a kidney. What do you want to say? Do you think the two cases were committed by the same person? It must have been committed by the same person, Ron said firmly. He knew he was very close to the correct answer. Now, check for me if these two people have been treated in the same hospital. Got it. Peggy helped Ron search, and of course her long legs were not idle, rubbing frantically on the pillow. With a high-pitched voice, Peggy finally found the information Ron wanted. They both went to the same hospital at the same time, Springfield Hospital. There's only one doctor in this hospital who meets all the above characteristics, and that is the owner of this hospital, Mr. James Springfield. His wife is a Chinese who died of cancer a year ago. I can't believe that the murderer would be such a gentle-looking man. Ron, do you know what the most ironic thing is? What? Ron asked knowingly. Peggy said in a sarcastic tone, the most ironic thing is that this hospital has established in-depth cooperation with the New York police. The autopsy reports of the two people who died at his hands were written by that doctor. Don't you think it's funny? This is really ironic. Ron stood up. Peggy, who had been watching him through the camera, noticed his actions. Ron, what are you going to do? Go get rid of that crazy doctor? Of course not. That's not my style. Ron chuckled. I just plan to use this as a condition to make that madman pay a tax first, if he doesn't want to be exposed. Okay, but don't forget, this is New York, not Los Angeles. If you are exposed, it will probably be a bit troublesome. Don't worry, I'm not stupid. I'm just going to be the green arrow to do justice and make some money. By the way, Ron covered his hood on his head and drew a line on his face with his hands dipped in oil paint. Doing justice and making money are not in conflict. After all, superheroes have to eat. As he spoke, Ron had already slung his bow and quiver over his body. Can you play with a bow and arrow? I can do a little bit. When I went fishing with old George, I would just shoot some animals in the nearby woods and bring them back to Mary to roast. But at that time, my main prey was hares, Ron said with a nostalgic expression. In his previous life, he was restricted by the law and could not play with guns. The bow and arrow was the only legal long-range weapon he could touch. Archery is one of the few skills he can play well without relying on the system. Now, it's time for the Green Arrow in New York to start work. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257. You failed this city. At midnight, Dr. James, the main doctor and owner of Springfield Hospital, has not returned yet. Instead, he continues to sit at his desk to sort out the information. If anyone sees him, they will sincerely praise him as a good doctor. But only he knows that the purpose of his checking the patient information is not to better cure the patient, but to screen the next victim from the patient. Yes, he is the real murderer of the recent New York serial murder case. A year ago, his wife's death made him realize the fragility and insignificance of life. He has saved countless people with his medical skills. To use the myth of his wife's hometown, It can be said that he has countless merits. But there is no way to save the life of his beloved wife, and even he himself has been diagnosed with cancer. At this time, if it were in the world of comics, he would become the Green Goblin or Dr. Octopus, and turn his knowledge into a weapon for evil. Even in myths, at least he would become a vampire like Dracula, who stabbed Jesus Christ with a long sword, and drank the holy blood. But unfortunately, this is reality, and he can only become a madman who puts all his hopes of cure on the most mysterious alchemy in Eastern mythology. Yes, that's right, he is already a madman. A person who has received higher education would believe that taking the 5 elements of the internal organs of a person born on a specific date of birth and taking them out at the corresponding time can cure incurable diseases. What else can he be but a madman? Soon, Dr. James raised a smile at the corner of his mouth, because he found the next suitable target in the information database, and this target is easier to deal with than the previous second-generation ancestor with a prominent family background. This target is just a homeless person who wanders in the city all year round. Dr. James secretly memorized the face of the homeless person. Under normal circumstances, this kind of person would choose to spend the night in Central Park in the city center at night. As long as he took the time to pay someone to chat with him and buy him a hamburger, he would easily tell him where he was staying recently. He only needed to do it at the right time at night. But at this moment, something unexpected happened. A sharp arrow pierced through the glass window and hit his desk. Before he could make any move, the glass window of the office shattered with a ping, and a figure rushed in. At this time, Dr. James finally reacted, took out the scalpel that had been hidden under the table and greeted the uninvited guest in the office. "Who is it?" Ron punched the scalpel in the doctor's hand. Dr. James may have a good fighting ability among ordinary people, but for Ron, who had just fought on the battlefield, he was not even qualified to be an opponent. Dr. James missed and immediately raised another fist to hit Ron in the face, but Ron didn't even have the mood to look at the fist. The hand that knocked the scalpel away changed from a fist to a palm, grabbed James' wrist and swung it to the side, and the doctor's center of gravity was deviated. The fist brushed Ron's face and hit the air. The whole person continued to move forward under the action of inertia. Seeing that James was about to fall into Ron's arms, Ron dodged to the side, giving up half of his body, and then lightly hooked his feet. Plop! Dr. James fell to the ground in an ugly dog-eating shit posture. And his whole face turned red. Just as he had time to support himself with his hands on the ground and prepare to stand up and fight again, Ron had already stepped on his back mercilessly. James, who had just finally caught his breath, was crushed by this kick. "I am Oliver Queen, the Punisher of this city, and you have failed this city," Ron said in a deep voice through the voice changer, and at the same time he felt secretly happy. Sure enough, it is still more handsome to say such a line with a very high degree of second-year syndrome. Compared with this line, lines like "I am the captain of the IRS Special Operations Team" are simply weak. Dr. James usually doesn't read comics, but it doesn't prevent him from occasionally seeing related TV series on the pay channel of his TV. Is this another copycat with a severe second-year syndrome? Dr. James thought so. He didn't think that the police would come to enforce the law in this way. Moreover, he had full confidence in his criminal methods, the IQ of the New York police, and was confident that they would not suspect him for a while. By the time those idiots really found him, he would have already refined the golden elixir and ranked among the immortals. Dr. James simply gave up struggling. "Friend, please let me go. No matter what you want, I can satisfy you. I am a doctor with a lot of money. Please don't hurt me." "Really?" Ron's face was blurred under the hood. James couldn't see what his expression was. He could only continue to say, yes, you can ask for as much money as you want, and I can give you all in cash. What if I want the elixir you are refining?" Ron asked in a playful tone. As soon as he finished speaking, his body under his feet suddenly struggled violently. Ron released his foot from his back, and when the doctor was halfway up, he kicked him hard in the stomach. "Behave yourself, you disgusting murderer." However, the doctor kicked away by Ron did not behave like the street thugs, who would behave themselves after being beaten. Instead, he covered his stomach and glared at Ron. "Who are you? How do you know I'm making an elixir? This is clearly a secret technique written in ancient books." "Impossible, you can't know it." "Sorry, I just took a stroll in your alchemy secret room." Ron picked his nose boredly, looking at Dr. James as if he was looking at a pile of garbage. "With this little bit of Taoism, you still have the nerve to call yourself a secret technique?" Have you seen the 1986 version of the West game? You even put the alchemy furnace in the wrong position, others put them in a row. Journey to the West? I only know that it's a mythological novel. When it came to professional issues, James suddenly became quiet, but the fanaticism in his eyes did not diminish at all. Not only did it not diminish, but it burned even more fiercely. Later it was remade into a TV series, and they invited an old Taoist priest from the mountain to be a consultant. He must be better than you groping around randomly. Ron curled his lips, but I'm not here to talk to you about this today. I don't have the time. I want to ask you, do you want to become a god? James nodded blankly. That's right, I'm here to discuss a deal with you, Ron tempted with a devilish tone. Once you become a god, these mortal things will be useless to you, right? So, are you willing to use your property to make a deal with me? What deal? I'll keep the secret that you are a murderer for you, and the price is that all your property will belong to me after any accident happens to you, that is, after you become an immortal. How about it? Chapter 258 Song Yi. The next day, after investigating the crime scene, Qin Feng and the Japanese boy quickly locked their target on a Chinese person by checking the nearby surveillance cameras. So the Chinatown detective team composed of Qin Feng and Tang Ren rushed to a Chinese school in Chinatown before everyone else to find the murderer. We are about to catch that perverted murderer. It's really exciting to think about it. Tang Ren walked beside Qin Feng, like a fly, chattering non-stop. It is said that serial killers are a specialty of the United States. Do they all look alike? Generally speaking, serial killers meet the three elements of McDonald's. However, Qin Feng did not find it annoying and explained slowly. Tang Ren immediately answered, Coke, hamburgers, and fries. Here, I brought one for both of you. The hamburger I picked is a spicy chicken leg burger. I hope you like it. As soon as Tang Ren finished speaking, he stretched out a big hand from the back, holding two paper bags with a McDonald's logo. Junior brother, Ron. The two turned around at the same time. Ron was drinking Coke in one hand and holding the bag in the other hand. How about it? You don't want it? If you don't want it, I will eat it all. Now McDonald's hamburgers are getting smaller and smaller. One is not enough. Why don't you want it? I want it. Tang Ren grabbed the two paper bags and threw one to Qin Feng. Junior brother, where did you go yesterday? Why didn't I see you all day? It's a rare opportunity to come to New York. Of course I have to go shopping. Yesterday I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the Twin Towers, and then I bought breakfast this morning and brought it to you, Ron responded casually. He really went to these places yesterday, but he automatically omitted the key links. That is a new will obtained from Dr. James, which states that if he has any accident, all his property will be automatically donated to the IRS Special Operations Team for funding. Ron asked a lawyer to help notarize it early in the morning, and then bought breakfast for them. As for why Ron knew their location? Of course it was because of the tracker. Ron installed a tracking app on Tang Ren's phone when they first met. What were you talking about just now? Coke, hamburgers, fries. How did you know I would bring you McDonald's? No, we are talking about the three elements of McDonald's. The correct answer is bedwetting, arson, and animal abuse. Ron sneered at this. For things like this, just take a look. Real criminals often become criminals for all kinds of strange reasons. Although there is evidence that the reasons for becoming criminals are related to their childhood experiences, it is a bit fake to simply summarize them as bedwetting, arson, and animal abuse. How is it possible? This is clearly the experience summarized by experts, Qin Feng retorted unconvinced. Then what common characteristics do criminals have? All have committed crimes? Does this count as one? Ron joked. Well, except for this one. It's really hard for me to find any common points among those criminals. To put it bluntly, in a sense, everyone has the potential to become a criminal. What they lack is an opportunity to become a criminal. Some do it for profit, some for beauty. In short, it's all kinds of desires. It's impossible for people to be without desires. Even the most noble people can't avoid it. When whose desire conflicts with the public order and good customs we believe in, then crime is naturally inevitable. Ron and Qin Feng looked at each other, representing the conflict between two concepts. But a rookie like Qin Feng who just came out of school certainly can't compare with Ron, and he is about to lose. Fortunately, at this time they have walked to the door of the Chinese classroom, and the sound of reading aloud inside has been clearly heard. Slice, slice, cut into pieces, what staple food do you want, what pig food do you want? A fat man who looks like a rich man stood on the podium to teach, and the students in the classroom below followed the fat man's words every time he read them. I thought only Chinese people learned English every day, but I didn't expect that these foreigners would come to learn Chinese one day, Tang Ren said proudly while lying on the windowsill. What's so strange about this? China's economy is growing fastest right now. The poor people in the lower classes of the United States are not fools. If they learn a little bit here, they can get a good job as a foreign teacher in China, and the salary is better than that of ordinary white-collar workers. Ron had already looked accustomed to it. Tang Ren said indignantly, "Damn. Isn't this too partial to these foreign devils?" Ron's arm had unconsciously wrapped around Tang Ren's neck, and he greeted him kindly. "Brother, when you say this, please don't forget that I am also a foreign devil in your mouth." Cough. "Brother, I was wrong, let me go." Tang Ren hurriedly called for help. Qin Feng, however, shook his head in disappointment after observing outside the window for a while. "Wrong? What's wrong?" Tang Ren asked hurriedly after breaking free from Ron's fixation. "Do you remember that I told you that the murderer was left-handed? But this Song Yi is right-handed." Qin Feng lowered his head. "Hey, where's my uncle?" Ron pointed towards the direction of the classroom door. "He has gone in." In the classroom, Tang Ren ran directly to the podium and stared at Song Yi for a long time before slowly speaking. "Did you wet the bed?" "No." Tang Ren still had a blank expression. Song Yi felt a little uneasy and finally admitted, "Okay, I did." Tang Ren jumped up and slapped Song Yi hard on the head. "I knew you wet the bed. You pervert. You set fires, right? You abused small animals, right? You also killed people? Just kill them, but why do you take their kidneys and hearts? Cut them into strips, slices, and pieces." Every time Tang Ren cursed, he kicked Song Yi hard. Tang Ren was having a great time when he was suddenly startled by the sound of clicking of rifles being loaded. The classmates who had been sitting obediently in their seats had surrounded him without him knowing when, and each of them had a loaded weapon in their hands. Tang Ren was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. "What should I do? Go and save him?" Qin Feng was anxious and asked Ron for help. "This idiot, he dared to touch other people in this neighborhood without any weapons. He doesn't know what free America is, where gunfights happen every day." Ron slurped the last sip of Coke in his cup, picked up a piece of cement that had fallen off the ground and threw it in through the window, then shouted in English, "Watch out for the grenade." Boom. The black guys who had been tempered in many gunfights immediately lay down reflexively. And Ron quickly grabbed Tang Ren and Song Yi by the collars and dragged the two out. Go. Chapter 259 Pink Memories. "It's all your fault. What should we do now? We've alerted the enemy, haven't we?" Qin Feng kept complaining about Tang Ren after coming out of the classroom. Tang Ren waved his hands impatiently. "I just wanted to catch that bastard and exchange him for 5 million. Who knew that those students were all carrying guns?" Ron said as if it was a matter of course. "What do you think? The United States is a country where you can legally own guns. It's a free America, and you haven't heard of gun battles every day." "I was almost scared to pee just now," Tang Ren said with lingering fear. "No, I really want to pee when I talk about peeing. I'm going to pee." "Lao Qin, junior brother, do you want to go?" "No, you two can come together. I'm going to find a bar outside to sit for a while, and then I'll go find the master. I haven't seen the master for a long time. Since I'm in New York, I might as well go and see him." Ron waved his hands. He didn't want the two unlucky guys to be blocked in the toilet together. He was not interested in being torn into pieces and running wildly on the street with only underwear left. With his temper, if anyone dared to do this to him, he would have shot him in the head to see what his brain looked like. However, Ron was very interested in watching others running naked on the street. Ron walked out of the house, walked around a few streets like taking a walk, and finally stopped at the door of an Irish bar, intending to go in for a drink. But for some reason, when Ron walked into the bar, everyone's eyes unconsciously focused on him, and the most surprising thing to Ron was that all the customers here were men. And they were all burly men wearing retro leather jackets, some even wearing turbans, dressed like standard American motorcycle gangs. Ron felt a little scared when he was looked at. Could this be a gay bar? Wait. The more Ron looked at these people's clothes, the more familiar they looked. Finally, he remembered that this seemed to be the bar where Tang Ren danced in the movie. If you say so, there will be something interesting to watch later. Ron walked to the bar, slapped his card on the bar, and gently knocked on the bell. "Give me a bottle of Lone Star beer, and this round is mine." Ron raised his beer. "Cheers to the Giants, cheers to the Giants." Everyone raised their glasses happily and celebrated from a distance. The originally awkward atmosphere immediately became lively again. In the United States, almost everyone is very concerned about sports, except for nerdy weirdos like Sheldon. So whenever you are at a stalemate in contact with strangers, it is definitely a very correct choice to shift the topic to local sports teams. There are three most well-known sports teams in New York, namely the Knicks, which belong to the NBA, the Yankees, which belong to the American Professional Baseball League, and the old giants of the NFL. The Knicks have become less and less popular in recent years due to their poor record. Although the Yankees are very popular, most of their supporters are New York natives known as Yankees. This group of people didn't look like Yankees at all, which made Ron feel nostalgic for his hometown of Texas. In addition, the sign at the door showed that this group of people was undoubtedly a group of Irish rednecks. Then, there was only one correct answer, and that was the Giants. Taking advantage of the topic of the Giants and the advantage of speaking Chinese, Ron quickly got along with everyone and even won the respect of everyone in the audience with a song of Jackie Chan's Kiss Goodbye. Ron, your Chinese is really great. The motorcycle gang leader came over and clinked glasses with Ron. How long did it take you to learn this? I learned it for 5 years, but I can't speak it as fluently as you. That's normal, because Chinese is the most difficult language in the world. Ron raised his glass. The motorcycle gang leader clinked glasses with him. You can teach me Chinese when you have time in the future. I have always wanted to find a Chinese boyfriend. When he said the last sentence, the motorcycle gang leader's expression was actually a little shy, and Ron was almost shocked. Brother, don't you look at yourself? Do you fit the shy expression? Fortunately, at this time, Ron had been waiting for someone and finally arrived. 3 panicked Asian men ran into the bar. Who else could it be but Tang Ren? Junior brother, why are you here? Tang Ren was also surprised to see Ron. If you don't come to the bar to drink, what else can you do? Are you here to strip like you? Ron walked up to Tang Ren with a smile, pulled the tight belt of his bright shorts very long, and then suddenly let go with a snap. Is this your zodiac year? Ah, Tang Ren screamed shyly. Junior brother, you are a pervert. Help us hide. Ron pointed to the bar next to the boss, and the 3 of them hurriedly went inside the bar. When Ron returned to his seat, he found that the leader of the motorcycle gang was staring at him. Ron, was that your lover just now? How is that possible? I like women, and that person is my senior brother, and we learned Chinese kung fu together. The boss was very happy. Then can you introduce him to me? Of course. Ron sold Tang Ren out without hesitation, and pouted at the door. As long as you can help him solve his troubles, I think he will fall in love with you. You have studied Chinese. You should know that in the traditional culture of the East, there has always been a practice of marrying your savior. At the entrance of the bar, the Chinatown gang led by Lu Guofu rushed in. A tall and thin subordinate in the lead shouted at the unfriendly crowd, I want 3 naked men. Hissed. The 3 burly men in the bar immediately tore off their shirts, revealing the strong muscles inside. Dare to play tricks on me? The skinny guy was furious. The people on Lu Guofu's side took out their pistols. I want Chinese people. Of course, the motorcycle gang was not to be outdone. They immediately raised their own weapons, including Chicago typewriters, HK-416, M16 and other rifles. The Chinatown gang was instantly weakened in momentum. Lu Guofu's face was covered with sweat. He took out a black screen mobile phone from his pocket with a pale face. Hey, Uncle Key, you asked me to go back for dinner? Okay, I'll go back now. While pretending to make a phone call, he slipped out in shame. Tang Ren, Qin Feng, and Song Yu poked their heads out from under the table only after everyone had left. Are they all gone? Of course. Thank you so much, junior brother. If it weren't for you, I would have been caught by them. Tang Ren carefully squeezed past the big men and thanked them. Are these your friends? Thank them for me. I'll treat them to a meal when we go to Thailand some other day. They are friends of my friends. It's too much trouble to treat them to a meal. Why don't you just express your gratitude right now? Ron gave a sly smile, and Tang Ren felt bad. Now? I don't even have a place to put money on me. How can I thank you? No need to spend money, just sacrifice a little time, Tang Ren asked in confusion. Time, and a little bit of sex appeal. Ron clapped his hands, and the younger brother who had known what was best turned on the music. Ron dodged and let the strong man with a rose in his mouth behind him. Swish! The boss lifted Tang Ren up by the butt, and the atmosphere of the whole bar was dyed pink with the music. Summer, quietly passed by, leaving a little secret behind. Chapter 260 Farewell to New York. Tang Ren was like a lily swaying in the wind. In the arms of the motorcycle gang leader, he swayed back and forth with the music. Occasionally, when his face was turned to Ron, his face was full of the kind of expression of despair. Save me, junior brother, I can't forget that I wrote you in my diary. I can't forget that you are still thinking about you in my heart. Ron had already taken out his mobile phone and turned on the video mode. This will become another collection of his masterpieces after the video of Sheldon lying in his own urine and twitching. At the same time, he didn't forget to give Tang Ren an encouraging look. Come on, senior brother, you can do it. Oh, summer is quietly passing by, but I still miss you. Your every word reminds me of memories. The cheerful music soon came to an end. Just when Tang Ren thought that the nightmare was finally over, the motorcycle gang leader hugged him and got into the photo booth to take a photo with a rose petal frame. At night, Ron and Tang Ren finally came out of the bar. Don't tell anyone about what happened in the bar just now. After a friendly gathering in a good atmosphere, Tang Ren and the other three got some spare clothes from the motorcycle gang, so they didn't have to go naked. Ha ha ha, don't worry, I won't tell you, I'll just keep it forever. Ron still laughed unkindly, and then Qin Feng and Song Yi laughed together. You dare to laugh? Tang Ren was furious when he saw Song Yi. If I hadn't saved you, would I have fallen into this situation today? Tang Ren said, and started to play with Song Yi. But Ron was in no mood to continue playing with him, because he just received a message. Stop. Ron held Tang Ren and Song Yi's heads. I have something to tell you. I'm going back to Los Angeles. Tang Ren turned around. Wait, junior brother, aren't you investigating the case with us? Are you in such a hurry to leave? There's no way. Now your identities are wanted criminals. As a law enforcer, of course I can't continue to walk with you. It will have a bad influence. Ron showed a message on his mobile phone to the three people. This influence is nothing to Ron. If he wants, he can cancel the wanted order in a minute. He is just tired of playing in New York and does not intend to sleep on the street with Tang Ren and the others. As for why he did not help them, it was entirely out of Ron's bad taste. When he could bully his senior brother, he would not miss the opportunity. Moreover, he knew that they would be safe in the end. In addition, there is another important reason that Uncle Key has made a will and donated all his property to the church after his death, so there is no need to go to the dying old man again. The church has always played an important role in the United States. Not only can it be tax-free, but it also has a large number of believers, which means that every time there is an election, they are the focus of politicians' flattery. Even the big guys behind Ron, as long as they want to stay in the political arena, have to be polite to these big churches. Ron will not touch that bad luck. Damn. What are we, wanted criminals? Tang Ren shouted unbelievably. We ran away with a suspect, so it's reasonable to be considered as accomplices, right? Qin Feng analyzed rationally, and Ron nodded approvingly. Of the three people, there was only this one reliable one. The other two were a funny guy and a scheming ghost with a lot of bad intentions. It was a miracle that such a strange combination could solve the case in the end. That's right. So if you want to continue investigating the case, you can only rely on yourself from now on. Ron patted Tang Ren's shoulder, who was stunned, and grinned. Damn, you ungrateful guy, you actually want to abandon your brother and run away? Senior brother has relatives? Qin Feng is still your nephew. Ask him if he will abandon you if he has a chance. Cousins, we are cousins. Qin Feng nodded and agreed. What should we do now? We are wanted and can't even stay in a hotel. We are dressed like this. Junior brother, you must help me. You are so rich. Do you have any house for us to live in New York? Tang Ren held Ron's hand and begged. Ron quickly pulled his hand away from Tang Ren's dirty body. There is no house, but I can think of a way for you to live. Ron bent down and picked up a newspaper from the ground. Here, if you sleep on the street, you can cover yourself with this. Although it is useless, it is definitely better than nothing. Junior brother, I used to be your shit and piss. Huh? Ron glared at him, and Tang Ren immediately stopped talking nonsense. Since I am your punching bag and accompany you to practice boxing every day, can you at least help us solve the problem of clothes? Ron held up his chin and looked at the trio of people in strange clothes. To be honest, the clothes lent to them by the motorcycle gang were definitely not bad, and even the leather jacket that the boss specially put on Tang Ren was real leather. But for some reason, no matter how I looked at it, I felt that their temperaments did not match. The fierce motorcycle jackets were worn by the three people to make them look like African refugees. Just as the four of them were walking to the shop window, Tang Ren suddenly stopped and stood in front of Ron. glancing back and forth between the clothes displayed in the window and Ron. He was hinting wildly. "These clothes are pretty good, I'll help you again," Ron said, and stood up the collar of his windbreaker, zipped it up to the top, and the large standing collar instantly covered most of his face. Tang-Ren had a bad feeling. "Junior brother, what are you going to do?" Ron had already bent down, pried open the manhole cover on the ground with a knife, grabbed one end with both hands, and swung it hard. After turning 3 times in place, he finally finished accumulating power and let go. The manhole cover flew out of his hand and smashed the window with a bang. Woo woo woo, the alarm began to sound, but Ron had already stripped the clothes off the 3 plastic models and threw them into Tang-Ren's hands. "Why are you still standing there? Run, huh?" Tang-Ren was stunned at first, then turned around and ran with a duck step in panic. "Thank you, junior brother." "Goodbye junior brother." Qin Feng and Song Yi were stunned for a while and hurriedly chased after him. "Wait for me." Ron shook his head, leaned against the wall, filled out a check for the loss of twice the price, threw it into the window, and then walked away, swaggering through 2 blocks and took a taxi to the airport. He had booked a flight for the evening when he was in the bar, and now it was a good time to go back and comfort those women after a good sleep. Chapter 261, Lee Han's Beauty Trap. Back in Los Angeles, Ron resumed his ordinary daily life of slacking off during the day, playing various games with Sheldon and his 4 friends after get-off work, and sleeping at any of his women's houses at night. Tang-Ren's case was quickly solved. After all, it was almost not difficult. Basically, all the difficulties were man-made. If Sherlock were to handle this case, it would probably take at most 1 day. However, Qin Feng was able to solve it within a week, which was still something. At least he was much better than Hobbs, who could only stare and yell. The only regret was that Tang-Ren's dream of a bonus was finally ruined. Uncle Qi finally died before they found the murderer, so the biggest winner should be the church. However, Ron certainly did not gain nothing. After James committed suicide, the hospital under his name automatically became the property of Ron's team. Although Ron did not intend to run it directly, he still interviewed a new attending physician named Gray as the person in charge of the hospital. Ron swore that he definitely didn't choose this woman because of her beauty, but because this woman gave him a very capable feeling, plus her medical skills were not bad, and she happened to be a surgeon corresponding to James' hospital, so Ron chose her. As for the women who were in a bad mood, it was easier to deal with them. It was nothing more than Ron spending more physical energy. With the help of Forrest Gump's perpetual motion machine, Ron could easily deal with it. Except for Caroline, who was more difficult to deal with. "Explain to me again, how can something I spent $3,000 on a few years ago be cheaper than a small toy with dipping sauce now?" As soon as Ron entered the door, he saw Caroline slamming a plate against the kitchen window. People around were already used to it. Fortunately, the plate was made of plastic, otherwise a small restaurant would have lost a lot of tableware every month. "The little princess is just throwing a tantrum again. She held a junk sale in our yard today, hoping to sell her toys for some money, but she didn't sell a single one." Max turned back to Caroline and said, "Because the toys in Happy Land can evoke people's good memories of the past. That was a good time, an era without the Kardashians, but my McDonald's toys were offered for 600 yuan. I guess your little princess is jealous." Max turned back to Ron and said, chatting with the two of them without interrupting his work. In comparison, Caroline is much inferior. If Ron were his own boss, he would definitely not hire her. Maybe, as Lee Han said, it's for good luck? I say again, I'm not jealous, I just don't understand why a pair of high heels worth $3,000 is not as good as the toys that come with the package. It's normal for second-hand luxury goods to lose value. In contrast, things with special meaning and commemorative value tend to become more and more expensive as time goes by. Ron comforted, just like I never understood why the total value of those comic books my brother kept in the bank safe is as expensive as a Porsche. Really? After hearing Ron's comfort, Caroline's mood finally improved a little. Of course it's true. Ron was about to say something else, and the boss Lee Hong came in with a file bag. Attention, attention, I have a very important document to announce, Max teased. Does your DNA test report prove that your mother is Asian and your father is a pine cone? No, we got the score from the city health inspection office. Lee Han fumbled in the file bag for a while and took out a scorecard with B written on it. Wow, we got a B, Max cheered. This is the first time in my life that I didn't have to kiss someone with my tongue to get a B. No, 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 it's just a B. I'm going to call that bitch named Jane Latro to argue with her, Lee Han shouted angrily. No, dear little guy, I don't think you should argue with her. I have a way. As long as you sacrifice a little of your time and energy, you can get an A. Do you want to try it? Ron grinned. When Lee Han's store was inspected last week, Ron was also on the scene. That was the first time that Ron really dared to eat something made in the kitchen without Max making another portion for him. Because the always sloppy chef Oleg finally took a serious bath at Lee Han's repeated request, instead of using deodorant to cover up the smell on his body and not taking a bath for a month as usual. In addition, he trimmed his nails, put on a hood, and even covered his beard with a sanitary plastic bag. He dressed up like he was going to the fungus room. Ron finally didn't have to think about what the hand that cooked for him had touched before cooking. What's the solution? Do you have a friend who works in the health bureau who can help me change the score? How much do I need to bribe him? Arhan's eyes lit up and he came up, looking like a very mercenary businessman. You don't have to spend a penny, Ron said, looking Arhan up from head to toe. It may cost dozens of dollars to change your clothes, but don't worry, you can still wear them before you enter puberty. Hey, I'm an adult now, don't always treat me like a child, Lee Han muttered dissatisfiedly. Okay, then do you still want to know my solution? Of course I do, tell me. After being hooked by Ron, Lee Han quickly put aside his anger. Ron didn't keep him in suspense. You just need to put on a handsome outfit and ask the female inspector out for dinner or a movie. Is it really that simple? Lee Han said in disbelief. Of course not, I'm telling you, Lee Han said disappointedly. What else? Also, you need this. Lee Han felt Ron stuff two small bags into his hands and pressed them down hard. He quickly lowered his head to see what treasure Ron gave him. But when he really saw what was in his hand, he was shocked. Oh my god. How can you take out such a thing in public? Lee Han's face flushed red with shame. Max laughed. Ha, you don't know how to use it, do you? How could I not know? Lee Han quickly retorted. Don't worry, little guy, that woman will definitely like you. Ron patted him on the shoulder. As long as you can satisfy her in other ways, I believe she will not refuse your small request. Chapter 262 Stan Lee. After Caroline and Max dressed up together, Lee Han set off with a nervous mood. Not to mention, after dressing up, Lee Han's figure still didn't show any signs of growing even a centimeter taller, but after stuffing 8 insoles in each shoe, he looked at least 5 centimeters taller than before. Ron, I didn't know you could do this. When would you need to use such a trick with your height? Are you going to use this trick to pick up girls from the women's basketball team? Caroline asked a little jealously after sending Arhan away. I'm not interested in sweaty muscular women. Ron spread his hands. It just so happens that I have a friend named Howard who does this every time before going out on a date, so I learned it by the way. Oh? Really? Caroline felt a little better. Then do you want to join me today? Let me interrupt you too. Just when the atmosphere finally turned to the ambiguous direction that Ron wanted, Max interrupted at an inopportune time. If you plan to play some intimate games, it's best to choose another day. Today we still have to clean up a mess from the last flea market and bake tomorrow's small cakes. This will not be done in an hour or two. Well, that's a pity. Ron felt that Max's mood was a little off, but in this case, he could only say sorry, then chat for a few words, say goodbye and leave. He had a vague illusion that Max was jealous. But thinking about it, it was funny again. How is it possible? That's maximum thinking of this. Ron pushed open the door of the apartment. As expected, all the 4 members of the team were at home, but there were all kinds of comics spread out on the floor beside them. Hey, guys, are you finally going to sell these things to say goodbye to your childhood and become adults? No, I will never sell them. Stan Lee is coming to participate in the event of the comic book store, and we are choosing the right comics to sign, Leonard retorted. I really can't decide whether to let Stan Lee sign his name on the 83rd issue of Journey into Mystery where Thor first appeared, or on the 5th issue of Fantastic Four, the comic where Dr. Death debuted. Rajesh mischievously pressed the sound of a speaker that he didn't know what it was, and a light music sounded from the Indian's chest. I decided to let Stan Lee sign his name on this month's Batman. Sheldon took over the topic and said proudly. I remember an old man told me before that Batman was not his work, and that old man happened to be called Stan Lee. Ron opened a bottle of water and took a big gulp. Yet, so no one would let him sign this. This way, I have a rare treasure that is weird but unique. From now on, I am no longer on the same level as those ordinary Atticus. Good idea. This is a good idea. I also want Stan Lee to sign his name on Batman. The Indian immediately prepared to plagiarize. Is it difficult for you to understand the word unique? Sheldon glared at the Indian in dissatisfaction. Hey. Wait, Howard finally reacted belatedly. Ron, do you mean you know Stan Lee? Can you let him sign for us? Sign a few more copies. I can also sell it to other comic book fans. When Howard called, the other two Atticus immediately surrounded Ron, and Ron became like a moon surrounded by stars. There is no way. For the Atticus, knowing Stan Lee is equivalent to knowing Christians, just like knowing Jesus Christ. They are both gods who created a whole world. The difference is that Jesus Christ was fictionalized by people and created a god of the real world, while Stan Lee exists in the real world but created a god of the virtual world. From this perspective, the two seem to be tied again. But this does not hinder Stan Lee's status in the minds of Atticus. Of course, I met him in the bathroom and exchanged business cards. Ron found a comfortable place on the sofa and sat down calmly, and said in an exaggerated tone, I'm so tired after working all day, let me give you a massage. The Indian immediately went around behind Ron and pinched his shoulders. It must be said that India is indeed the country that invented yoga. Rajesh is well versed in this. After pressing Ron's shoulder a few times, he found the acupuncture points and stimulated them skillfully. Ron moaned comfortably, Great, Rajesh, your technique is really good, but if I can have a serving of fried chicken and Lone Star beer now, it would be even better. As soon as Ron finished speaking, Leonard and Howard ran to the door at the speed of a race. I'll buy it for you now, but in the end, Leonard, who was closer to the door, won and successfully got the priority to buy fried chicken and beer for Ron. Howard could only come back awkwardly, squeezed Rajesh aside, grabbed Ron's other shoulder, and pressed it like the Indians, his eyes rolling around. Only Sheldon was still skeptical. Ron, do you really know Stan Lee? Of course, so now you don't plan to do something for your dear brother? I can ask him to sign for you. Ron looked at Sheldon's funny expression and tempted him like a devil. No, it's impossible. This is definitely a trick you are going to play on me, Sheldon said alertly. Just like the time when I was 10 years old, you lied to me that Batman would come to my birthday party, but when I walked into the garage, I was just shit on by a bat. You obviously heard it wrong. I just told you that bats and people would come to the house, and you mistook them for Batman, but the way you were covered in shit was really funny. I still have that photo. Ron laughed, and Sheldon didn't believe it even more. I won't do anything for you. Stan Lee will be attending an event at the comic book store the day after tomorrow anyway, so it's the same if I ask him to sign it then. Sorry, I almost forgot to tell you that you shouldn't be able to go to the comic book store the day after tomorrow. Ron took out an envelope from his pocket with a mocking expression. Howard took it and said in surprise, Sheldon, how did you get a letter from the court? It's normal. It should be the receipt of the complaint letter I sent to them before. The flags at their door are placed incorrectly. The correct order should be from left to right, the federal flag, the state flag, and finally the Pasadena city flag. Sheldon, this is a subpoena. Howard opened the envelope after getting Sheldon's permission. You ran a red light on Mag Avenue, so you must appear in court the day after tomorrow morning, when the comic book store event is held. Chapter 263 Ron's preparations. You were photographed by a roadside camera, and you look pretty photogenic. Howard made a panicked face, and it's true that he really has some of Sheldon's charm. Sheldon snatched the court subpoena from Howard's hand. Just at this moment, Penny, who came to read on time, opened the door. Hi, guys. Sheldon immediately found the culprit. Penny, isn't this the night you fell in the bathtub and I had to take you to the emergency room? No, it's definitely not. Penny denied it quickly. It is. It's not, Penny. I remember it very clearly. Sheldon saw Penny denying again and again, and simply handed over the photo in the subpoena, and the camera also took a picture of you in the passenger seat, holding your dislocated shoulder. That wasn't me. Penny continued to deny it without blushing, but now even Leonard didn't believe her. Okay, then why was it sent to me when the subpoena for traffic violations was issued to you and had your license plate number? Sheldon directly threw out evidence that Penny could not refute. Penny finally pleaded guilty. Okay, they sent me the subpoena, and I told them that I was not driving the car at the time, and then they asked me, who else could it be but you? So you betrayed me, Sheldon said angrily, and his furious look reminded Ron of the green bird with a long beak in the game Angry Birds. This is not betrayal. Penny's voice rose several degrees at once, And then she looked at Sheldon's unfriendly eyes and lowered it again, saying pitifully, I just said I have no points to deduct from my driver's license, and I have to go to the Cayman Islands to buy car insurance. Don't you still have Leonard? I think Leonard would be willing to help you buy car insurance, right? Leonard, Ron called Penny's number one licker. No, we are just lovers now. Even if we get married, it's my own business. Penny jumped up and retorted loudly, as if she had stepped on a mouse on a red-hot iron plate. Before Leonard could speak, she jumped up and retorted loudly. Then it's up to you. Ron then remembered that he was in the United States, not a boxer-dominated environment in his previous life. Women here are more independent and more accustomed to AA with men, and take it for granted. Of course, there are also those gold-digging women in the United States who just want to be with rich men. In fact, women also prefer to date rich men, but even gold-digging women rarely let men pay for everything when they are in love. To paraphrase a famous crosstalk actor in Ron's previous life, even if you are a prostitute, you have to set up a memorial archway, right? But the reason I drove your car was because you looked pitiful at the time, so I lent a hand, Sheldon asked Penny indignantly. So you have a photo to record your heroic day, right? Penny tried to confuse the audience. Leonard took the subpoena from Sheldon. It's no big deal, you just need to go to court on Thursday to pay the fine. I'm not going to pay the fine. If I pay it, it means I'm guilty. Howard looked up. You are indeed guilty, Sheldon protested loudly. I'm innocent. I only have a learner's license. Penny taught me. When the light turned yellow, she kept shouting go, 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 so I just drive. Go, go Sheldon, I'm sorry, I will pay you back the fine as long as I can act in a movie or make a TV series or something. Well, then I guess Sheldon will never see your money again in this life, Ron commented pointedly. And the other three little Oedipus, including Leonard, nodded in agreement. You don't have to pay it back, because I won't pay it. Sheldon's stubborn temper came up again. On Thursday, I will go to court, justice will be served, and I will start writing my defense now. Ron, your brother is in jail, right? Will your mother call you again to teach you a lesson? Howard asked gloatingly. That definitely won't happen this time, Ron said happily while playing the game. I talked about this topic with Mary when I went home for Christmas. Maybe we can find a chance to let him stay in there for a few days. Maybe he can change his bad temper. I don't need your help, Leonard and Rajesh whispered for a while and reminded, Sheldon, don't forget, Thursday is the day after tomorrow. It's the day Stan Lee comes to sign autographs. What are you going to do? Oh, that's right, Stan Lee is coming that day. Sheldon suddenly realized and scolded Penny, look at what you've done. Because of you, we can't see Stan Lee anymore, huh? Leonard was surprised. What do you mean by all? You are all my friends. Sheldon stood up and said, as a matter of course, you have to stand by me, support me, and provide me with momentum. If your muscles are as strong as Ron's, when I win, you can carry me on your shoulders and carry me out. Howard looked at Ron. Is this also the custom in your hometown in Texas? No, that's just Sheldon's personal imagination. Ron was having fun playing the game, and he answered without looking up. But, speaking of it, Ron was shot in the head by someone in the game, and he was so amused that he threw away the controller. For some reason, he felt that killing people in the game was much more troublesome than in reality. If it were in reality, he guaranteed that all the noobs hiding on the other side of the network cable would not be enough for him to fight with one hand. Last time I made a bet with Stan Lee, and he seemed to owe me a meal. If Sheldon was not there that day, or could come to eat together, I think Stan Lee would not mind if I brought a few more loyal fans. Without Sheldon, there would naturally be no embarrassment or coldness. For an old man like Stan Lee who likes to enjoy the admiration of others, is full of vanity, and is very rich, he would definitely not mind him bringing a few more. As for why Ron knew that the old man was vain? Please, do you still need to guess? Have you ever seen an old man like Stan Lee who loves to show off so much that he has to guest star in all the comic book remakes under his company? The relationship between Ron and Stan Lee is not as weak as he told everyone. Although they don't have many opportunities to meet, Ron often calls Stan Lee and they have watched Lakers games together. Every time Stan Lee sees Ron, he will sigh and wonder why Ron is not an actor and he has not met him earlier. Otherwise, he is definitely the most suitable actor for the role of Thor. However, Ron has no good feelings for this role and is not even interested in cosplaying. This role doesn't even have a mask, which is too unsuitable for him to change his identity and do things. I'll go, please take me with you. This is Howard Leonard's excited voice. And Rajesh, because Penny is talking, can only anxiously hum while raising his hands vigorously. No problem, Ron put Rajesh's hand down. Since you are interested, then everyone can come together. I think you can discuss with him the feasibility of the actualization of Iron Man's battlesuit, or other technological creations such as flying skateboards. If any one of you can come up with a reliable plan, I promise to take him to Stan Lee's house for dinner next time. How about it? Ron said in a coaxing tone, like a weird uncle who tricked a little girl to see the goldfish. The three little Otacus were excited and their eyes were red. Ron smiled in his heart, and this matter was considered a success. Ron certainly had his own little calculations. The scientific research strength of these guys was the strongest among all the people Ron knew. If their enthusiasm could be stimulated, maybe they could really come up with some very sci-fi weapons. Although a long period of peace had passed, Ron did not dare to relax himself. In addition to insisting on his various exercises every day, he also often visited various weapons companies to see if there were any new and powerful weapons that could be used. This was also forced. Ron knew that the world was not as peaceful as most people saw. Apart from other things, the weapons used by the agents in the tailor shop in the UK were many levels higher than Ron's equipment. Ron had been jealous for a long time. Just the standard umbrellas that could be bulletproof, used as guns, and could be used to beat made Ron envious, not to mention the other more sci-fi equipment. Just imagine, Ron holding an umbrella in one hand and a revolver in the other, killing people in and out of the crowd. Just thinking about it makes my blood boil. Unfortunately, the Holmes who worked in the British government was too stingy and didn't even let him touch these things. If these Otacus could work hard and come up with black technology like Iron Man's armor, Ron would no longer have to envy other people's things. He might even be able to register a company with it and get orders from the Pentagon. By then, wouldn't it be a lot of money? Of course, Ron is not just for making money, but more importantly for self-defense, to protect himself and his family. Yes, you heard it right. Even though Ron now has such a strong fighting power, he still doesn't feel safe. Since his debut, although he has successfully turned danger into safety every time he encounters an incident, it is undeniable that his enemies are becoming more and more powerful, and Ron is increasingly unsure of what kind of weird things he will encounter. Think about it, before Ron traveled through time, even the latest movie in the Fast and Furious series had already driven cars into outer space, and there were all kinds of magical equipment that were ridiculous and beyond common sense. Even if we don't mention the troubles on Toretto's side, just thinking about the enemies that the tailor shop will encounter in the future, Ron has a headache. The magical phone card that can blow people's heads into fireworks with a mobile phone, the Blade Warrior who can walk fast with a knife on her leg, and the robot dog with intelligence comparable to Skynet, none of them seem to be easy to deal with. Fortunately, Ron hasn't met any of them yet, otherwise, even if he could manage it, he would still have to suffer a lot. Ron had to prepare for the rainy day from now on. Hey, Ron, why don't you take me with you? I'm also a fan of Stan Lee, Sheldon yelled in dissatisfaction, pulling Ron back to reality from his thoughts. Because I don't want to lose a friend like Stan Lee. Ron answered with his head tilted. Although his tone was a question, it was undoubtedly an affirmative sentence in this context. Sheldon stomped his feet in anger, but he had no way to deal with Ron. Well, since my so-called friends have abandoned me, it seems that there are only me and the witness. Let's go to the apartment over there to draft my defense, and let you rehearse it. By the way, Sheldon grabbed Penny, who looked like she had lost hope in life. Do we need to rehearse? By the way, please dress appropriately the day after tomorrow. If the judge is only thinking about what the juicy on your pants means, it will not help my case. Okay, Ron stood up and clapped his hands. While Sheldon is away, let's start working on your topics. Which project should we start with? How about the arc reactor? Ron picked up a comic book at random, which happened to be the first episode of Iron Man, so he blurted out. In fact, miniaturized reactor projects are now being carried out in various countries. Rajesh, who ranks second in IQ among this group of scientists without the influence of women, immediately began to show his strength, but if it is made as small as in the movie, nuclear fission technology will not work at all. The only possibility is cold fusion, which requires a clear study of nuclear force first. It is estimated that there will be hope when a theory that can truly unify all forces appears. And the person among us who is most likely to derive a grand unified theory should be your brother. Doesn't that mean that my Iron Man suit is hopeless? Ron said disappointedly. That's not impossible, Howard picked up a pen and started drawing on the whiteboard in the apartment. Although Ron had only a vague understanding of science, he could tell that it was a design. If the suit is downgraded to a more advanced exoskeleton system, it's not that difficult. The military is working on this, but they use scientists specially trained by the military, which is rubbish. We can definitely design a better one. As he spoke, a whiteboard was filled with Howard's concept drawings. Guided by his interest, Howard was inspired and immediately took out a new board to continue sketching the details. If our suit is designed to be fully enclosed, the burden on the body can be shared through the structure of the feet. In this way, the load-bearing capacity of the suit will be greatly improved. Then we can install stronger bulletproof armor here and here, these key places, and use the structure of the suit itself to share the impact of the attack. Leonard's eyes lit up after Howard started, and he also took a pen to draw on the board. While the two of them were drawing, Rajesh wrote formulas that Ron couldn't understand on the board next to Howard's concept map. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, Angel. Under the temptation of having dinner with Stan Lee, which all geeks could not refuse, Ron successfully tricked 3 geeks into the lab the next day. Looking at their busy figures in the lab, Ron showed a satisfied smile. If there was a mirror for him to look at, he would definitely find that he looked like Gollum, the character known for greed in The Lord of the Rings. Especially after seeing that there were 2 more people in the lab than he had expected. One was Sheldon and the other was Alex Dunphy. Sheldon is easy to understand. He is the kind of person who, if you put a question that interests him in front of him and give a childish and ridiculous answer, even if you don't say it, the cute little angel named obsessive-compulsive disorder living in Sheldon's mind will drive Sheldon to erase the wrong answer and give the correct answer. In fact, Ron also took advantage of Sheldon's interesting habit. Since moving into the apartment, he has never cleaned the room again, and the closet and the small arsenal where he puts his equipment have never been cleaned. Every time he came home, he would throw his dirty clothes on the ground just like Penny did, and stuff his equipment into the small room of the arsenal. Then whenever Ron felt that he should clean up, he would bring Sheldon over for various reasons to let him see it all. Then the little angel would drive Sheldon to tidy up Ron's housework again and again. Even Ron's small arsenal was separated by Sheldon according to their respective types, sorted by caliber, and hung on the wall from small to large. It was more professional than a professional British butler. Just say, with such professional butler service and free meals, Sheldon never took the check that Ron wrote to him. Who would go to the trouble of buying a big house to live in? What else would that be but stupid? As for Alex, it was because he was in his last year of high school and began to prepare for college. The experience of participating in scientific projects at Caltech would add a lot to his resume. At this point, we have to mention the American University selection system. It is different from what many people imagine. The American version of the college entrance examination, SAT and ACT test scores only account for a part of the admission, while American universities pay more attention to the comprehensive quality of a student. At this point, are many poor students starting to get excited? Do you think that if you were born in the United States, you can definitely go to a good university? Ron thought so in his previous life, but after he traveled through time, he found that this system was really nonsense. First of all, the so-called comprehensive quality is a relatively abstract concept. It is difficult to quantify it except for the trophies won in sports or knowledge competitions, which gives the rich an opportunity to take advantage of it. Therefore, you will often see children from wealthy families in the United States often participate in various charity activities when they are in school. Don't be surprised or think that they are kind-hearted. They are just brushing up their qualifications. This is one of the biggest drawbacks of quality education. When abstract things cannot be quantified, whoever has money has quality. Alex came to the laboratory to help for this purpose. Whether it is Sheldon, Leonard, or Rajesh, they are all qualified to write a letter of recommendation for Alex. And with the academic status of the 3 people, this letter of recommendation will play a big role. Except for Howard, because he only has a master's degree. Hey, can you not mention this every time? How many times do I have to say that I am an engineer, and the doctoral title means nothing to me? I don't need to do theoretical research. I do applied science, Howard complained dissatisfiedly, and after saying that, He did not forget to glance at Alex. Although Alex is just a high school student and Howard already has a girlfriend, he still doesn't want to embarrass himself in front of a female high school student. Alex covered her mouth and laughed. She likes Caltech more and more now. I think it's also a good choice to take a doctorate in a certain major. To be honest, it feels great to have a doctoral title. I have one, Ron complained calmly. Rajesh took a big gulp of beer and said, "Don't forget, Bernadette has been admitted to a doctoral program in biology. When she graduates, you will be the only one among us who does not have a doctoral degree." Howard took 10,000 points of damage and began to withdraw. "Guys, can we talk about something else?" "Okay," Ron agreed politely and walked to Howard's workbench, on which was something similar to a human skeleton. Howard was connecting the lines through metal pipes, and Alex was helping him. "This thing looks really ugly. Can you help me make it look better?" "This is just an experimental verification machine, mainly used to verify Sheldon's design. When the official version is made, I promise it will be as handsome as Iron Man's." Howard picked up 2 masks, gave one to Alex, put on the other one himself, and began to weld the connection between the shell and the skeleton. Ron was bored and walked to Leonard's board. This single-soldier combat exoskeleton system was designed theoretically by Sheldon, and then designed by Leonard and Rajesh, and then assembled by Howard. It is very different from the simple version of the single-soldier exoskeleton that Ron often saw on the internet in his previous life. In addition to the exoskeleton system that assists in movement, a whole layer of composite bulletproof plate is installed on the outside. A layer of special ceramics is sandwiched between the metal shell, which can withstand all ordinary caliber light weapons ammunition. Even if it is accidentally hit by a 12.7 mm caliber squad machine gun, it can effectively reduce most of the kinetic energy of the bullet. Although the driver will still be injured in the end, it will basically not be fatal. Correspondingly, the weight has also increased a lot, so the Forrest decided to install a large battery backpack on the exoskeleton to provide battery life. However, the more Ron looked at their design drawings, the more familiar they were. This thing should no longer be called an exoskeleton, right? If the helmet is replaced with a classic teapot head and the blue and white paint is replaced, it is almost the same as the Gundam. It is almost the same as a mecha. "Are you sure this thing can run?" Ron asked Howard while he was welding. "Well, it can run. With its own hydraulic power system, it can run up to 80 or 90 yards at the fastest. But the battery life is a bit short. It needs to be recharged or the battery backpack needs to be replaced every half an hour, but don't worry, if Sheldon's solar furnace is successful, you can run as long as you want." "Have you thought of a name for this thing?" Ron lowered his head and thought for a while. "Then let's call it the Angel of Power. It would be even better if you can help me equip it with a vibration particle saber. I worked overtime yesterday until this morning, and worked all morning before waking up and starting to update." Chapter 265 Sheldon's New Skin Unlocked. According to engineer Howard, it would take at least 2 months to make an experimental machine for Ron's battlesuit, and it would take even longer to put it into actual combat. When Ron came out of the laboratory, he received a call from the Air Force Equipment Department. They expressed their interest in Ron's full-cover exoskeleton, believing that this thing would be very useful for paratroopers who were mainly equipped with light equipment, but Ron refused. Of course, Ron's search for someone to develop new equipment at Caltech could not be concealed from the military, which had always had in-depth cooperation with Caltech. In fact, when Sheldon and his team made the permanent pointing system in the original Time and Space, they were immediately targeted by the military. This is normal. Caltech is the first place where many aspects of research have always been tied to the military, especially their aerodynamic laboratory. Of course, Mr. Jin once worked in this laboratory. As a result, everyone can see the hardships of returning to China by watching the documentary, so I won't repeat it here. So, don't believe the nonsense about American academic freedom. Whoever believes it is a real fool. Of course, Ron did not forget to give the little Otacus a taste of sweetness first. He fulfilled his promise as promised. Not only did he take the 3 of them to lunch with Stan Lee, he even asked Stan Lee to take them to visit the studio of Marvel Studios. To my friend Leonard, Lone Ranger Stan Lee. Leonard looked at the newly developed photos excitedly and boasted proudly, "Look, I'm still hugging his shoulders. I wrote the same as you, but I was closer. I was almost next to Stan Lee," Howard said, holding up the photo. "I wrote to Rajesh," Stanley. Rajesh said, a little disappointed. "Who told you to keep entangled in the name of his comic character? You pissed him off, friend," Ron said depressedly. In order to persuade Stan Lee to take photos with his friends and visit the filming location, Ron promised to turn a blind eye to his company's tax avoidance tricks in exchange. I just hope that the exoskeleton system they developed is as useful as they said, otherwise, Ron will really lose a lot. We are back. Penny pushed open the door, followed by the depressed Sheldon. Ron couldn't help but gloat when he saw Sheldon's unfortunate appearance. Sheldon, how does prison feel? You obviously know it. Why are you asking? Yeah, but I still want to hear you say it yourself, which can make me feel more happy, Ron asked happily while lying on the sofa. I was found guilty and fined $533. I'll write you a check, Penny said quickly, as long as you promise me to hide it in a drawer and not compete for it, just like the check Ron wrote you. Sheldon glared at Penny fiercely. I don't have a driver's license yet, but I've already been deducted 3 points on it, and was forced to make an insincere apology just because I refused to pee in front of a group of prisoners on a stainless steel thing. I reiterate, that thing is definitely not a toilet. Sheldon had obviously suffered a lot of grievances in prison, but Ron had no intention of letting him go. It was a rare opportunity to bully him openly. How could he miss it? If that basin isn't a toilet, then what else could it be? You didn't think they would install a wishing well in prison, did you, my Greek girl? Ha ha ha. Ron's teasing brought a burst of laughter. And Howard picked up the photo and added fuel to the fire. Plus, you missed meeting Stan Lee, and Ron even asked us to take a photo with Stan Lee, the three of us together, without you, Sheldon. Okay, Howard, don't provoke him. The poor guy has it hard enough. He's been in prison for an entire afternoon and he's dressed like this, Leonard advised, but Howard showed off even more. You're right, so let's not mention that after the autograph session, we also had Chinese food with Stan Lee and went to Marvel Studios for a tour. That's too cruel, Howard said pitifully, but every word hit Sheldon's fragile little heart. Sheldon's eyes widened. What? You had Chinese food with Stan Lee, and he gave each of us a prop from the movie. Look what this is. Ron took out an Iron Man helmet from behind the sofa and put it on his head. Jarvis, start the armed mode. Yes, my master. The electronic voice of Jarvis' voice sounded from the helmet, and the visor automatically covered Ron's face from above. Sheldon's eyes were straight. This toy was simply too big for a geek like him, not to mention, by the way, did I tell you that there is Robert Downey Jr.'s signature on the back of this helmet? Ron put the helmet in front of Sheldon and pointed to the signature. Sheldon swore that if he couldn't beat Ron, he would want to pull his helmet off and put it on his head. You all have it too. Sheldon pointed at the other people with a trembling hand. He didn't even realize that his voice began to shake. Of course, mine is Thor's hammer. Howard took out his props. Mine is Captain America's shield, and it has Captain America's signature on it. Leonard, who is always a good guy, couldn't help but show off in front of his friends. Rajesh has one too, but it's unsigned. Rajesh pouted, a little unhappy, but when he thought of Sheldon having nothing, he became happy again. Brothers, these are the rewards you deserve for helping me. If you can finish my new toy quickly, I promise there will be better gifts for you. Ron took off his helmet and said proudly. Now he was 100% sure that these Oedipus had been firmly controlled by him, and the Air Force would never be able to poach them. Look at what you have done, Sheldon yelled at Penny, then turned to Ron and used a rare pleading tone. Ron, I helped you with yours, too. Look, you want it too. Ron smiled, a cunning smile. The fish finally took the bait, and Sheldon nodded frantically. That's not impossible, as long as you continue to help me with that project later. I promise, I absolutely promise. As Sheldon said that, he was about to grab the Iron Man helmet in Ron's arms, but Ron dodged it flexibly. Wait, I haven't finished yet. This alone won't do. My brother Ron handed the helmet to Howard for safekeeping, and took out a box from the back. Unless you put this on and show me. In the box was a very sexy maid outfit, which Howard bought for playing games with Bernadette, but for Sheldon, he didn't mind contributing it first. Chapter 266 Another Turbulence. Knocking on heaven's door. Mama, take this badge off of me. At the entrance of Lee Hand's small restaurant, a crowd of people dressed in hippies gathered since some time. Ron glanced at his watch and frowned slightly. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. If he remembered correctly, Lee Hand's restaurant should have closed at this time. After the holiday, Ron was dragged by Andy to stay in the office for several days. Finally, the tax plan for the new year was completed. Finally, he got off work and was hungry. He remembered that he hadn't seen the sisters Max and Caroline for several days, so he deliberately passed by the restaurant to see if he could pick them up and go home. As for what he wanted to do, it can only be said that Simazeo's intention is known to passers-by. But he didn't expect that the restaurant, which was usually deserted, would suddenly become so lively. What did Lehan do? He couldn't sell marijuana openly in his store, right? Fortunately, Ron's doubts did not last long. He immediately spotted Caroline's figure through a small window not far from the restaurant entrance. At the moment, she was talking to a woman. Ron walked over. "He crashed here before he fell," Caroline said, gently holding a small gap on the windowsill with a look of affection. "When he fell, he was looking at me and smiling." That smile was satisfied and very peaceful. Just when Ron thought Caroline was going to say something touching, Caroline suddenly changed the subject. $7 for a small cake, cash only. "Okay, can you make a change for the $50? The woman took out the money very readily. Of course Caroline took the money and immediately shouted, "Max! Max, I'm here." "What are you doing?" Ron looked in the direction of the voice and found Max holding a plate and wearing a garland in the crowd. "Change." Max walked over, took out a stack of small bills and counted them out. At this time, the hippies' music finally reached its climax again, and the two beautiful girls swayed along with the melody of the music. "Knock, knock, knockin' on heaven's door. Hey, my dear beauties, can I have a small cake too?" Ron squeezed over and greeted. "Oh, Ron, you're here," Caroline exclaimed in surprise. "Here, vanilla flavor, this is the only flavor for now. Max, it's almost sold out, go to the kitchen and get some more small cakes." "Okay, I'll go right away, Earl," Max shouted in front of him, and Ron saw Earl, who was selling in the crowd. Just like before, "I'll give you a commission of 30 cents for each small cake sold." "What a waste. You know, if you sell marijuana here, look at these hippies, plus you don't have to pay taxes. Do you know how much you can make?" Earl sighed. "Hey, Earl, I'm still here," Ron said helplessly, announcing his presence. Earl said with a familiarity that is unique to black people, "Hey, men, we are all family, can't we be convenient? As a law enforcer in Los Angeles, it is difficult for me to turn a blind eye to the crimes happening in front of me. Do you understand, Earl?" Ron winked at Earl, and deliberately emphasized the words "happening in front of me." Earl was already old and shrewd, and immediately blinked in understanding. "Oh, Ron, you are really nice." Caroline immediately leaned out from behind the windowsill and kissed Ron heavily on the face. To be honest, after staying in Los Angeles for more than 3 years, Ron has basically made everyone in the city realize his strength. So every tax collection work is very smooth. Except for those large companies that used to have no way to deal with them before and still have no way to deal with them now, and still pay a symbolic amount to deal with them by using reasonable tax avoidance. Even the various forces in the underworld have gradually developed the good habit of paying taxes on time. Even after the Jews planned the bank robbery, the banking industry was no longer a single entity. In order to prevent Ron from making public the evidence of his collusion with the and to protect his reputation, believe me, in the United States, if these evidences were made public, not only he, but also his entire family would be ruined. The Jewish power in the United States is so strong that it is unimaginable. He had no choice but to hand over the real account books and pay taxes according to the actual business situation. The old banker Andy obtained evidence of other banks' unpaid taxes through the accounts with other banks in the account books. The bankers in Los Angeles were panicked and began to split internally. In addition to Mr. Cass, who was forced by Ron, 3 more bankers came to pay taxes one after another. Ron felt that it was only a matter of time to break through the banking industry in Los Angeles. It was a pity that this was not the financial center of New York, otherwise Ron's income would be even more amazing. In comparison, Ron really didn't care about Caroline's trifles. Ron sincerely praised, "You seem to be doing good business." "Of course, you don't know. I was scared when that rock singer collapsed in front of our newly opened store, but I didn't expect that this was a gift from God. Do you see these people outside? Almost all of them are fans of that singer," Caroline said excitedly, and Ron finally understood what was going on with these hippies in front of him. "Well, it seems that you will be busy until late today. I don't have the honor to date you," Ron said, a little disappointed. "Sorry, Ron, you know, opportunities to make money like this are not common, so Caroline said apologetically. Seeing that Ron was a little unhappy, she immediately leaned into Ron's ear and said, "Next time I can make it up to you. I bought a new set of very nice underwear. You can do whatever you want, haha." That's what you said, Ron laughed. In fact, most of the disappointment on Ron's face was acted out. Unexpectedly, there were some unexpected gains. But just when he was about to tease Caroline again, 2 police cars with police cars whizzed past on the road. Ron looked back and saw that the direction of the police cars was exactly his Special Operations Team headquarters. Damn it, Ron cursed inwardly, and hurriedly said goodbye to Caroline and drove to the base. IRS Special Operations Team, Los Angeles Branch. Ron rushed back to the base before all the police cars arrived, but someone had already arrived before him. Ron, what happened? Do you need help? Guan Yuming was at the door and had not yet entered. When he saw Ron come back, he immediately asked with concern. Guard the door, no one is allowed to come in. Ron casually threw his ID to Guan Yuming. Damn it, our IRS affairs are not the Los Angeles Police's turn to deal with. After saying that, Ron strode into the base. Joe and Andy, who looked like Morgan Freeman, were dragging a corpse towards the kitchen. Ron even heard the sound of Hannibal sharpening a knife in the kitchen. Hey, I need an explanation, Ron said angrily. Don't tell me you're hungry and planning to have some human flesh for midnight snack. Yes, I'm talking about you. Ron pointed at Hannibal, who was sticking his head out of the kitchen, and said, I've read your file and know that you have a history of cannibalism. I was so naive to think that you have changed. You really disappoint me. There's a misunderstanding here. Ron, relax, this guy is not dead yet, Andy explained quickly. Listen to me, it's like this. After you left just now, I heard some noise from Joe's place, so I went to check it out, and found that this guy was pointing a gun at Joe, so I knocked him out with a stick first. What about those policemen outside? Ron pointed out the window. The police's voices were getting closer and closer. Maybe it's because this guy touched the trigger and fired a shot before he fainted? Let passersby think something happened here and called the police, Andy answered naively, and his 2 old friends were already slapping their foreheads in embarrassment. Andy, we have a shooting range here, and there are gunshots every day. No one will call the police because of this. Even if there is, the Los Angeles police will just laugh at the call. Ron opened the curtains. The police car had already stopped outside the base. Guan Yuming was explaining something to the police, but it seemed to have no effect. The police still wanted to come in and take a look. Ron's expression became more and more serious. No matter what the reason is, the police went out as soon as they received the report, and they came so quickly. It is definitely not as simple as you think. Joe, who is the guy who wants to kill you? Do you have any clue, boss? You know me. I used to be an agent like you. I have too many enemies to count. How do I know who he is? Joe spread his hands. Well, anyway, it seems that we are in trouble. You drag that guy down first, and I will go to see what's going on. As he said, Ron checked his weapons and walked outside. Hey, gentlemen, this is the Los Angeles headquarters of the IRS. You can't go in. Guan Yuming was still trying in vain to stop the police, but the leading policeman pushed him away roughly. Get out of the way. Old man. We received a report that there was a shooting here and someone was injured. If you don't get out of the way, I will take you back with me. The leading policeman was showing off his power, and suddenly a gunshot rang out, scaring him to shrink down quickly. When he looked again, Ron had walked out of the base. I want to see who dares to enter my territory. Ron raised his gun and blocked the door like a door god. This is the IRS, not a place for you garbage to run wild. Who are you? The sheriff asked in a panic. Although he concealed it well, Ron still keenly observed the surprise in his eyes. This guy definitely came prepared. And he deliberately chose a time when he was not there to do it, but he never expected that he would come back so soon. It is the most basic courtesy to give your own name before asking someone's name, especially when facing a superior officer of a higher rank than you. Ron took his ID from Guan Yuming and threw it directly at the sheriff's face. Did your superior teach you this? A trace of anger flashed in the sheriff's eyes, and Ron raised his chin proudly. Or do you think you can ignore your superiors by relying on your numbers? Do you want to compete with me in firepower? Ping ping. The glass window on the second floor of the base was broken, and 3 black gun muzzles protruded. I don't think the toys in your hands can compare to the firepower of heavy machine guns. What do you think, Mr. Sheriff? Ron took 2 steps forward, took back his ID from the sheriff, and patted the sheriff's face provocatively, but the other party did not dare to make any radical moves. He was afraid that if he made a mistake, 3 machine guns would shoot at them. He came in a hurry and thought he could handle it quickly while Ron was away. His men were all holding pistols, not even a rifle, let alone a bulletproof vest. So the sheriff could only suppress his anger, but still didn't want to give up. No, I just received a report and hope to go to your base to investigate a little. I promise it won't take too long. What a joke. Can you enter the IRS headquarters just by saying so? Ron sneered. Do you think this is the cheapest street prostitute on the street, and anyone can enter whenever they want? Your superiors don't dare to make such an unreasonable request to me. You look a little unfamiliar. Whose subordinate are you? I've never seen you in Los Angeles, Ron asked, looking at the sheriff's appearance with his head tilted. Of course, he couldn't remember the appearance of everyone in the Los Angeles Police Department. In fact, he was just trying to trick them based on the abnormal behavior tonight. In the end, it was not known whether Ron was too imposing or the sheriff's psychological quality was too poor, but he was able to get something out of this trick. I'm a new police officer from Orange County. I just reported yesterday. It's normal that you haven't seen me before. We will become more and more familiar with each other in the future, the sheriff replied perfunctorily, and looked at the base behind Ron with some reluctance, and turned around. Team up. The sheriff's men looked at each other, but no one moved. Ron crossed his arms and sneered. The rubbish plan, rubbish internal management, and the rubbish performance of these people, especially the tactical actions that were obviously from the military. If he still can't see that this group of people are disguised CIA, then all his years as an agent have been in vain. It can only be said that since the end of the KGB, the CIA has been getting worse and worse, and now it can't even pretend to be a police officer. The sheriff could only yell again, "What are you looking at?" I said call the team. Didn't you hear me? The police turned back to the car, started the car and left. When the last car disappeared around the corner, Ron took one zooming back to the base and closed the door as soon as they entered. Now, I'll give you 3 minutes to organize your thoughts. I need you to give me a reason. Ron stared into Joe's eyes. Why are you being targeted by the CIA? Another old friend of mine came to see me today, and then I found out that I was being followed. I think it might be because of the incident in Guatemala. Chapter 267 The Mystery of Guatemala. Joe has an old friend named Frank Moses, who is also a retired agent. He visited him earlier today. While reminiscing about the past, he also brought a big trouble, that is, he was hunted down. As an agent, it is normal to be hunted down after retirement, so almost all agents will continue to train after retirement and use the connections they have established when they were agents to transform themselves into a middleman in the underground world. Or, they will ensure their own safety by training new successors for their original organizations, but often the first task issued to them by the organization in order to confirm the loyalty of the newcomers is to kill their teachers. Joe took a unique approach. Before he retired, he found an opportunity to put himself in prison, and through the original connections of the sleeping people, he stayed in prison very comfortably, which was considered to be a new way for agents to retire. However, Ron sneered at his tricks. In the final analysis, it is still the lack of strength that causes trouble. If one's own strength is strong enough, even if everyone knows that he knows a lot of secrets that cannot be told, which will make many big shots unable to sleep at night, they can only do nothing. In this regard, the best ones are regarded as role models by all agents. Of course, Ron has no ambition in this regard, but with his current strength, it is still no problem for him to become a small capitalist after retirement. At that time, he will become one of the real masters of this country, and no one will make things difficult for him. This is a bit off topic, let's talk about Joe. In short, Moses found Joe after he was released from prison through his unique way. After the two old men analyzed it, they found that several old acquaintances who had died recently had directly or indirectly participated in the Guatemala mission that year. So, after talking for so long, what did you do in Guatemala? Ron was impatient and interrupted Joe's story and asked directly. We were responsible for escorting an agent, and I don't know anything else. It was only through the dead people that Moses investigated that I remembered that almost all of the old buddies who were on the mission with us at that time were dead. Escorting an agent, and you don't even know what his mission is? This is interesting. What year was it? Maybe there will be corresponding information in our IRS database. Ron held up his chin, and the interest in his eyes became stronger and stronger. It was the fall of 1981. We escorted the agent all the way to the outside of San Benito. Later, we heard that everyone in the village died, Joe recalled while Andy was typing on the computer. When Ron cast an inquiring look at him, Andy shook his head. It's getting more and more interesting now, Ron stood up and paced around the room. The massacre of a whole village, such a big thing, is not even recorded in the IRS archives. Joe, do you remember anything else worth remembering after completing the escort mission? No. Okay, let's change our thinking. You just said that Moses gave you the fingerprint information of the people who assassinated him. Have you found out who they are? The CIA's South African assassination team is the team that assisted in creating many riots over there. Joe's face was solemn. So it's them. Relax. They are no longer the terrifying team they used to be. Ron couldn't help laughing when he heard the name. They were wiped out once in Afghanistan before. Now they are just newcomers. But the fact that the CIA can dispatch them to carry out the mission of strangling you is enough to show that there is a lot of involvement here. Unlike ordinary people who get a headache when they encounter trouble, Ron didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, his eyes became brighter and brighter, because he knew that behind major events, there must be greater interests involved. If it is done properly, perhaps the dream of becoming a small capitalist can be realized a few years earlier. Well, it seems that this is what happened. Now someone wants to kill all the people involved in the Guatemala mission. The reason is unknown. They will not stop until they achieve their goal. So, for them, the best result is that you are dead, right? Yes, it seems so. Joe smiled bitterly and nodded. Ron took a silenced pistol and pointed it at the head of the prisoner who was still struggling. Bang! There was a bloody hole on the prisoner's head, and the lifeless body fell to the ground. Ron didn't feel disgusted. He took some blood from the body and smeared it on the confused Joe's head. He also took out some strange bottles and jars and began to dress him up. After a while of fiddling, there was a bullet hole on Joe's head that was almost the same as the body, which could be mistaken for the real thing. Now you take this. Ron took out another capsule and handed it to Joe. Don't worry, this is not poison. 10 minutes after taking it, it will make your breathing and heartbeat so weak that it's like you're dead, and you'll fall into a state of suspended animation and wake up 3 hours later. Since someone wants you to die, why not really die for them to see? Ron pouted, and Joe immediately nodded in understanding. For many things, I believe hiding in the dark will get better convenience than being in the light. What do you think? That's right. Joe took the capsule from Ron's hand and swallowed it without even drinking water. Ron, is there anything else we can help you with? Guan Yuming looked at Joe, whose consciousness was becoming increasingly blurred, and asked with concern. Prepare 2 coffins and send them to the church for burial, Ron asked Joe, who was still asleep. By the way, where do you think your old friend will go after leaving here? Pensacola, Florida. Joe's voice became weaker and weaker, and it was almost inaudible at the end. There is another friend of ours, Marvin Borges, who Moses likes to drag with him no matter good or bad things. 2 days later, in Pensacola, Florida, although it is still winter, this small city near the equator is still surrounded by warm sunshine, as if winter has never existed. In this place where everyone is still living in summer, the 2 people in coats seem particularly out of place. Can we find Marvin Boggs here? Ron asked, wrapped in his coat with his collar covering most of his face. The information I found said that he died in a fire 2 years ago. Are you sure you are not senile? The day after the attack on the wrong base, Ron held a funeral for Joe, and then handed over all the affairs of the base to Andy, and he and Joe disguised themselves and slipped out. As Ron expected, after Joe's corpse was left in the church, someone really sneaked in to see his body, but because Ron deliberately disturbed them, they immediately slipped away quietly. Don't worry, boss. This is his usual method. As far as I can remember, Marvin has died many times, but every time when we need him, he can appear alive and kicking. Joe, who also covered most of his face with his coat collar, said confidently, the last time I communicated with him, the address was here, in an old house next to the river. He has been to Vietnam and likes living by the river very much. Let me guess, the way we will find him later will not be that I tell you a joke in the woods, and then the third laugh heard besides us is him. Right. As he spoke, they had arrived at the place indicated by Joe. Ron parked the boat on the shore and stepped onto the dock. This method used to work well, but in recent years, Marvin's sense of humor has become higher and higher, and this trick is a bit less effective. Do you have thermal imaging, boss? Joe looked around the house and found no clues that anyone had lived there. Or I have a simpler way. Ron took out his mobile phone, turned the camera to selfie mode, turned it upside down, and made a V gesture to the camera. A new selfie was taken. Hey, Marvin, I've seen you, Ron shouted at the bushes next to him. Be careful, boss. Before Joe finished speaking, A figure in camouflage suddenly jumped out of the bushes. "Who sent you to assassinate me?" The sharp arrows on the modern-style mechanical slaves shone with a strange green light, which was obviously coated with poison. Ron knew. As long as he gave a wrong answer, the force would immediately shoot through his body. However, Ron did not feel the slightest fear, because he was younger and his movements were faster than this old guy. Ron suddenly took a step forward, holding the crossbow arrow in his left hand and raised it up. With a whoosh, the poison arrow shot into the sky. When the old man in camouflage saw that the crossbow arrow shot into the air, he immediately threw away the crossbow without hesitation, reached into his waist, and a Nepalese dog-legged saber slashed across Ron's waist. A gleam of admiration flashed in Roland's eyes. Instead of taking a step back, he faced the direction of the blade, stepped his feet, and made a gorgeous turn, like dancing a ballet, bypassing the blade and moving directly to the old man. The left hand that had just pushed the crossbow away slashed from top to bottom at the arm holding the knife. Before the old man had time to fight against Ron with his strength, Ron's arm immediately passed through the old man's armpit like a flexible venomous snake, and pressed down his shoulder to his head. Then Ron just hooked his feet, and the sturdy old man was pressed to the ground with one hand. "Relax, old man, I don't want to kill you. If I want to kill you, one hand is enough. Maybe you were really fierce when you were young, but you are no match for me when you are old." "Bullshit. You stinky brat are cheating. You must be a spy sent by the government, and you want to capture me and control my mind again. I tell you, I will never go back with you even if I die." The old man struggled violently under Ron's hands. Ron looked at Joe helplessly, meaning that it was your turn to take action. "Marvin, it's me." Joe took off his windbreaker. "That's my boss. We are here to find you. There is something else that I forgot to tell you. Boss, Marvin has been suffering from paranoia. Can you let him go first?" Of course. Ron stood up and touched the old man by the way. Of course, it was not because he was perverted, but to confirm whether the old man had any other weapons. Old guys like this who have been through many battles and can still live to retire are not easy to deal with. He has suffered enough from the old guys in the death squad. As a result, I found a lot of rewards. In addition to the dog-legged saber that Ron knocked off the second time, the old man also had 2 daggers and a pistol on him. "Joe," I scolded with anger, "have you been brainwashed by the government and started to bring people to deal with me?" No, I haven't been brainwashed." Joe raised his hands, indicating that he had no weapons in his hands, and slowly approached Marvin step by step. Marvin stared at Ron defensively and hid his body on the other side of Joe, who was in a straight line with Ron. If Ron made any unusual movements, he could immediately turn the bridge into a hostage or a shield. Seeing this, Ron had to secretly praise him in his heart. As expected, he is a veteran who can survive the Vietnam War. That experience is really unparalleled. "I never thought of killing you. We are friends, right? I saved your life." Joe tentatively patted Marvin's shoulder. Marvin did not resist, showing a look of reminiscence. "Yes, you are right. You are my friend. So, can you take the knife off my balls now?" Joe said helplessly. Ron lowered his head. It turned out that while talking, Marvin took out a sharp blade from somewhere and pressed it against Joe's crotch. Ron couldn't help laughing. "I hope I will never know where his knife was hidden just now." "Joe, your old friend is really interesting. Who is he?" Frightened by Ron's voice, Marvin regained his vigilance. Joe rolled his eyes at Ron helplessly. "He's my current boss. He won't kill you." "I'm in some trouble. Has Moses come to see you recently?" "Moses? No. Well, it seems that even after holding a funeral for you, we are still ahead of your old friend." Ron was halfway through his words when the sound of a speedboat engine came from the river, approaching from afar. "Someone is coming. Hide quickly," Marvin shouted and pushed Joe into the bushes. Ron was also curious about who had come, so he squatted in with him. Soon, another speedboat floated to the dock, and an old man and a young woman, well, about 30 years old, got off. "Is that your old friend and his granddaughter?" Ron asked curiously. "No, that should be his new girlfriend." Ron looked at the woman in disbelief, then looked at the bald old man, and couldn't help but give him a thumbs up from the bottom of his heart. He is really a talent. Immediately attracted Marvin's angry glare. SHH. Chapter 268. Marvin's Sixth Sense. What happened next once again confirmed the saying that the essence of human beings is a repeater. Marvin jumped out of the bushes again when the newcomers were not paying attention. Ron thought it was interesting and simply pulled Joe out with him. The 3 of them each held a weapon. From a distance, they looked like three good friends in the bushes. However, although Frank almost made Joe blow his top, his actual fighting ability was not comparable to that of Ron, who was in his prime. In the end, Marvin, who was not very clear-headed, had to be persuaded to put down his weapon. "I'm not staying outside. Come on, come back to my house with me." After a brief chat, Marvin pointed to the back and began to lead the way. The woman named Sarah, brought by Frank, pointed to the house by the dock in confusion. "Isn't that the one?" She found that Marvin was not leading them to the house. "That's just a bait." Marvin walked to an inconspicuous abandoned car, opened the hood of the car, and revealed the passage inside. "Come in." "Hiding your home in the secret passage of an abandoned car? Your friend is very interesting." "I am beginning to be more and more interested in him," Ron whispered in Joe's ear. But Sarah was still very puzzled. "Why do you still live here if you already have a house?" "Hey, that stupid woman, if you were being hunted by the CIA for a long time and had to live in hiding all your life, I believe you would make the same choice, because only in this way can you live longer." Ron rolled his eyes impatiently. "In fact, hiding in this way is an extremely smart idea. There is an obvious residence to attract attention, and then you can stay not far away and observe the situation over there at any time to deal with it. The best thing is that with this bait in front, those agents who have searched fruitlessly will often be indifferent to other targets nearby, and invisibly buy time for transfer. I have to say, this is really a great idea." "That's right. That's it." Old Marvin looked at Ron with appreciation, and he found a soulmate at once. "When the helicopter flew over the house last year, I immediately noticed that they were still staring at me, eyeing me covetously. I have a list here, written by a dead reporter. Everyone on the list is dead, almost everyone." Frank probably didn't want his woman to continue asking stupid questions and causing any conflicts with Ron, so he immediately brought the topic back to the point. Before Marvin could pick it up, Ron had already grabbed the list in his hand. "Just as we found out, Joe, it is indeed the Guatemala incident." "Guatemala?" Marvin fell into memory. "It seems that we did carry out a mission there." "Yes, we escorted an agent there, and that agent obviously had a mission, and after that, I heard that the people in that village were massacred." Joe followed Marvin's words, and Ron's eyes swept along the list. "That's right, so now we need to know who else on this list is still alive. Maybe he may know what kind of mission the agent has." Sarah took the list and began to search. "Gabriel Singer, okay, a name that obviously smells of curry. So our next goal is to find this person. Do you want to come?" Ron invited the two old agents on the sofa. He selectively ignored Sarah, who was eager to try. A stupid woman who had never received any training would only be a burden if she participated in the operation, not to mention that she was not good looking. "Frank, I thought I would never say this again. I'm going to make a comeback." Marvin excitedly put his hand on Ron's and shouted. "No matter where you go, even if it's hell, I will follow you, my boss." Joe also put his palm up. "This is your trouble. I just think it's profitable, so I came here to dig up the CIA's dirty tricks. I need to settle the account with them for killing people on my territory," Ron complained, and then three pairs of eyes gathered on Frank. "Okay, I did it." Next, this temporary team composed of Ron and the old agent split into two groups. One group was led by Frank to get Gabriel's address. The other group was composed of Ron and Joe. Because Joe's identity was now a dead man, and Ron didn't want to expose himself, the two chose to go out to the suburbs without surveillance. It was not until 3 o'clock in the afternoon that Ron finally received a text message from Frank. "Mobile Air Transport Transfer Station, Alabama." Ron put his chair back helplessly. "Are we tracking the mission or recording a program traveling across the United States? Maybe you can take a look at the scenery of the southern states." Joe started the car. "Well, I can only treat it as a vacation. Remember to call me when you get there." Ron put on the blindfold. The next day, Frank came out of the train station with his girlfriend Sarah and old friend Marvin. Ron and Joe had arrived at the station long before they arrived, but because of a small episode, they did not recognize them. Just as they walked out of the station, Marvin suddenly went crazy and thought a woman behind him was a CIA agent and pressed her against the wall and interrogated her viciously. If Frank hadn't rescued the poor woman in time, Marvin might have killed the guy on the spot. "I'm sorry to let you see such a rude scene." In fact, Marvin was locked up and fed hallucinogens for 11 years because of a CIA mind control experiment, so he suffered from paranoia and sometimes behaved like a madman, Joe explained awkwardly. "But Ron didn't care, because my brother, The one you met. I have always believed in one thing, that is, those who look special often have some more magical abilities. Maybe your old friend is one of them. Maybe this is the sixth sense he has trained from his long-term battle of wits and courage with those bad-hearted scientists, Ron said, pretending to walk past a woman casually. He and Joe's faces were made up and they could no longer see their original appearance, so there was no need to avoid being photographed by the camera. However, a magical thing happened. Just when they walked past the woman, as if to prove Ron's words, the woman's originally frightened expression suddenly calmed down, and she took out a mobile phone from her handbag and made a call. Target tracking failed. The target person has been alerted. All tracking personnel evacuated. Chapter 269, Airport Fight. Your guy's name is Marvin Borges, right? Ron asked in surprise. Tell him that after this incident, if he is interested, he is welcome to work at the IRS. This sixth sense is simply amazing, much more reliable than all the experience Ron has known. To be honest, Ron didn't see any flaws until the woman took out her cell phone. I think Marvin will be very happy, Joe nodded and replied. On the other side, Frank and his party rented a car after leaving the train station and drove all the way to the cargo airport. With a woman who is very good at disguising herself in front of him, Ron carefully observed the vehicles coming and going along the way, and he really found something fishy. On the way from the station to the airport, there was a car following Frank and his car for a short distance at almost every intersection, and then turned at the next intersection and switched to another car to follow. However, it may be due to the lack of manpower. When they reached the fifth intersection, the license plate number had been repeated, which means that there were 4 cars following them. The smile on Ron's mouth became more and more intense, and things became more and more interesting. As we all know, the CIA has always been an intelligence department with plenty of money, so there will never be a shortage of personnel. If there is still a shortage of personnel in a certain operation, it can only mean one thing. That is, this operation is not a task assigned by the formal process, but a private action by some powerful individuals in the CIA. Ron smelled a hint of conspiracy. Have you put the bug I asked you to put on, Frank? Joe shook his head. No, Frank and Marvin are too alert. If I put it on them, they will definitely be discovered, so I put it on Frank's new girlfriend Sarah. Then I think the effect should be good. Ron parked the car on the side of the road and turned on the receiver. She has a camera in her bag, so we have to kill her? What's going on? Sarah's complaining voice came over immediately. Let's talk about this later. Frank lowered his voice. Are you Gabriel Singer? What's wrong? A strange voice joined the chat, and Ron found a man named Gabriel through the telescope. Guatemala, 1981, San Benito. Frank pointed out the topic succinctly. Gabriel's face changed and he pushed Frank away. I can't talk to you about this. Gabriel had just stretched out his hand halfway when a dagger suddenly appeared like a magic trick and slashed towards Frank's neck. However, someone was faster than him. As early as when he stretched out his hand, Marvin had already noticed something was wrong. Before Gabriel could put the knife to Frank's neck, Marvin's pistol had already been pressed against his forehead. 2 against 1, okay, you win. Gabriel wisely threw away the dagger and raised his hands. This is not the place to talk, follow me. Gabriel led the 3 people to the tower where he worked. After briefly explaining the purpose of their visit, Gabriel paced around the room anxiously. What do you think a retired naval pilot with 2 medals of honor would say to the reporter from the New York Times? I don't know, I didn't say anything. The reporter is dead, and everyone who talked to her is either dead or about to die, including you. Frank's words made Gabriel realize his situation. Oh my God! Gabriel lowered his head and thought for a moment, then raised his head and finally told him everything he knew. The CIA sent me to fly a plane to send someone over in the middle of the night, taking off from a small road in the wilderness. He is a CIA agent, dressed in a suit, and looks a bit silly. I remember that guy. We escorted him there after he got off the plane, Marvin recalled. After he picked up another person over there, I flew them back. People? Who was that person? Frank felt that he had finally grasped the point and asked anxiously, but Gabriel was about to speak when he was interrupted by the anxious Marvin. Frank, look over there. It's that plane again. Marvin pointed at a helicopter outside and shouted. Sarah was a little confused and couldn't figure out the situation. We are at the airport, so it's normal to have a plane. It's the same plane. N9748C. Marvin took out a crumpled little note from his pocket. See, Frank, that's it. Let me see. Gabriel just leaned over the window. A string of bullets were fired from the helicopter, one of which hit him in the chest. It's an enemy attack. The two old agents, one took the bag, and the other threw his girlfriend down, and immediately hid by the window. Outside the airport, in the CIA temporary command vehicle, the commander in charge of this operation showed a smug smile on his face. Yes, that's it, full fire suppression. Don't let that old guy run away again. Don't worry, sir. The subordinate's reply in the headset was just halfway through. Boom, a huge explosion came from the commander's headset. When he looked again, the helicopter had become a fireball and fell to the ground. Report to the commander, our helicopter was shot down by a rocket. What should we do now, FXXK? That old guy has accomplices, the commander cursed angrily. Everyone, all out, don't let them run away again. On the other side, Ron, who was standing in the cargo box of the pickup truck, was satisfied with his labor. He threw away the empty and smoking rocket launcher and kicked the front cabin. Let's go, Buzz. The pickup truck engine roared, and it directly broke through the fence of the airport and rushed inside. Ron held the guardrail tightly with one hand and held the pistol with the other hand, aiming at the man standing on the top of the container. Bang! The man was shot and fell from the top of the container, and Ron took the opportunity of the car slowing down to jump out of the car. Meet at the back door later. After saying that, he took out another revolver from his waist, held the gun with both hands, and walked towards Frank. After just 2 steps, he met an old acquaintance. The female agent who was interrogated by Marvin at the train station was now holding a submachine gun and shooting at the other end of the box. She didn't notice Ron's arrival at all. You guessed it right, old man, I am an agent. She actually called me old man? Frank, can I kill her? Marvin shouted angrily. Yes, X2. Marvin's question actually attracted 2 answers, one from Frank and the other from Ron. Go to hell. The female agent immediately turned the muzzle of the gun when she saw that there was someone around her, but at this time Ron was too close to her, less than 2 meters away. At this distance, fists are more effective than pistols. Bang! Ron swung the butt of his gun at the female agent's face. Okay, you can shoot now, Marvin. Chapter 270 New Breakthrough. Bang! Marvin pulled the trigger, and the female agent's head was exploded into a pool of red and white blood by the large caliber revolver bullet. Ron's eyes lit up, and he liked Marvin even more, because he was using the same Smith & Wesson M500 revolver as Ron himself. He was really a sentimental person. Thank you, you're welcome. Ron shot down an agent who was standing on the top of the container and fired. He kicked the female agent's rocket launcher and turned around swiftly. Behind him, an agent carrying a rocket launcher just flashed out from behind another pile of boxes and was about to take advantage of Ron's unpreparedness to attack him. Little did he know that his action had already been reflected in Ron's sight by the rearview mirror of the car next to Ron. Go to hell. Despicable guy. Ron pulled the trigger. The rocket whooshed and flew towards the agent with a tail flame, and at this time, the agent who was also carrying a rocket launcher finally reacted and pulled the trigger. But it was too late. His rocket had just left the launch tube and flew less than a meter away when it was hit by Ron's fire bullet. The 2 rockets hit the firing pin. With a bang, they were detonated at the same time. The agent was instantly torn to pieces by the shrapnel of the explosion. The meat was blown onto the container behind by the power of the 2 rocket explosions, forming a projected blurry figure. However, this figure was made of the meat of corpses, which made people feel a little disgusted. I will never eat meat patties again. Ron was a little disgusted. In the command room, the satellite image was temporarily ineffective because of the thick smoke caused by the rocket explosion, which completely concealed the figures of Ron and Frank. When the smoke finally cleared, the target people had already disappeared. FXXK. Damn it, who can tell me where Frank got those helpers from? The commander was furious. Information department, what are the results of the facial comparison? According to our facial comparison results, the old man carrying the pig doll should be Frank's former teammate Marvin Borges. The subordinate reported truthfully with the information. The commander nodded without comment, took off his headphones, and rested his arms on the desk. Then who is the young man who just killed my right-hand man? That skill definitely can't be a nameless person. The subordinate was a little hesitant. Not knowing whether to say it or not, the commander saw through his thoughts at a glance. If only from facial recognition, he is Hobbs, the commander-in-chief of the FBI Los Angeles branch, and the favorite right-hand man of our immediate boss, nameless what? The commander widened his eyes in disbelief. Is the FBI involved too? Maybe not. What do you mean? Say it all at once if you have anything to say. Don't hesitate. Huguan frowned. I just checked with a surveillance satellite. 10 minutes ago, Hobbs was training with his daughter in the football team, so the person just photographed. The commander frowned even more deeply. What was going on? Is the FBI now involved in the CIA's affairs? Or did someone deliberately use the face of an FBI director to deceive them and try to lead them down this misunderstanding? The correct answer is of course the second one. That's right, the Hobbs photographed by the satellite was disguised by Ron. It's just not as complicated as the commander thought. Ron didn't mean to drag the FBI into the water. Disguising himself as Hobbs's face was purely out of his personal bad taste. Boss, why did you make your face look like Hobbs? Do you have a grudge against him? Joe asked curiously. He had met Hobbs once before on Valentine's Day. Judging from the language they used, he speculated that the two of them might have a grudge. No, I just simply think that this face should appear in various big scenes. Ron touched his fake face and answered happily. He could already imagine what kind of expression Hobbs would have when he was called by the anonymous person to be scolded. It must be very exciting. Frank, where are we going next? If we want to find out the reason why we are being hunted, there's only one place to go. Frank thought for a while and answered. Joe, are you talking about the Washington headquarters of the CIA? All the CIA's operational files are stored there. Yes, but that place is heavily guarded. We will die if we go there, Frank said in a slightly depressed tone. Come on, we need to find some other helpers. Although Frank said that he was going to find other helpers, his eyes were always on Ron when he spoke. He had already learned Ron's true identity from Joe, and he also knew what Ron's current fake face meant. It means that he can freely pass through all important departments of the CIA and the FBI. Although Hobbs is the head of the FBI Los Angeles branch, he has another identity in the CIA, so he is always mixed up with the anonymous person. This has long been an open secret. Why are you looking at me? You don't want me to go into the CIA headquarters to help you steal information, do you? I won't do such a thankless job, Ron shrugged, but I don't know whether I should call you old antiques or complain that your brains can't keep up. In this information age, don't you know that all the confidential documents of the CIA are electronically archived? Ron typed back and forth on his phone for a while, and immediately, a top-secret document of the CIA was sent to the encrypted phone he used to keep in touch with Peggy. You make the work of an agent very boring, Sarah couldn't help but complain. Hey, silly girl, being an agent is not the kind of idiotic game you have seen in novels and movies since childhood, Ron retorted. Real agent work has always been to exchange the smallest sacrifice for the greatest benefit. If you don't believe me, you can ask your old boyfriend. Sarah glared at Ron angrily, her chest rising and falling violently with a rapid breathing, and her collar showed a beautiful picture, but Ron was not interested in this. At this moment, he was concentrating on reading the document. First, his brows were furrowed more and more tightly, then suddenly relaxed, and then a smile curved at the corners of his mouth, and finally he almost laughed out loud, which made the old men around him puzzled. What does the CIA file say? Nothing. The CIA has almost erased all the information about the Micromira incident from the files it has stored. Ron handed the phone screen to the old men to see, but the very interesting thing is that this file mentions a person who does not exist on the list of reporters. Ron scrolled to the bottom line of the file, and only one name remained between the two large paragraphs of blackened text. Alexander Dunning. Dunning is the president of Browning Orvis. And he is one of the famous arms contractors of the Department of Defense. Frank suddenly became serious. And he is also a gangster, and has been dealing in drugs privately. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271 Assault on Eagle Fort. Alexander Dunning, a defense contractor who came from the Mafia, has a high-sounding name, but to put it bluntly, he is just an arms dealer, no different from Yuri Orlov. If you have to find a difference between them, Yuri believes that business is business, and he is only responsible for selling weapons to people in need. He has always defined himself as a salesman. It's just that the goods he sells are weapons that can take other people's lives. Dunning is different. He regards himself as a big man who can stir up the world. He often uses money to open the way for his business, and then uses the money earned from the business to bribe more officials to do things for him. In order to make more money, he even spends a lot of money to lobby congressmen to launch a more protracted war. Perhaps knowing that he has done too many bad things, Dunning is also particularly concerned about his own safety. He built his residence on a high mountain and named it Eagle Castle. Ron and the others are now outside this manor. "Boss, why do I have to wear such weird clothes? I'll look like a clown?" Marvin pulled his red and blue tights unhappily. Beside him, Joe in black tights, Frank in dark blue tights, Sarah in black leather, and Ron in golden red tights were lying on the snow. If a geek who likes to read comics saw them, he would definitely shout Avengers. That's right, they are now wearing the cosplay costumes of the Avengers superheroes. Ron is Iron Man, Joe is Black Panther, Frank is Captain America, and Sarah is Black Widow. No reason, just to help you hide your identity better. Besides, don't you think this outfit is suitable for what you are going to do? Avengers, Ron smiled. He had no reason to be unhappy. Marvin and Frank had agreed to join his team under Joe's persuasion, and the Los Angeles Senior Citizens Club had added 2 more strong generals. With their strength, if Ron has another mission that requires him to leave for a long time, he can have no worries at all. With the skills of these old guys, he will not be robbed by others. But Frank's girlfriend Sarah is a little unhappy because she is disliked by Ron, and he doesn't even want to take him out to play on this mission. In Ron's words, Sarah is a burden. "What are you going to do?" Frank asked. In addition to Dunning's own bodyguards, there is also a small team of FBI monitoring his actions 24 hours a day. If we make a slight move, it will immediately attract their attention. If you ask me, we should pretend to be an African warlord who wants to buy weapons and approach him by discussing business, Ron casually told Frank's plan, and Frank opened his mouth in surprise. "How do you know my plan? Come on, the old agents of your era only have a few tricks to play, which is too troublesome." Ron shook his head. "I have a simpler way. How to do it? Just attack." Ron put on the Iron Man helmet and picked up the walkie-talkie. "Toretto, are you ready?" "No problem." Toretto's buzzing voice came from the walkie-talkie. Then, the action begins. Ron's voice just fell, and the large tanker truck that was originally heading to the nearby gas station suddenly changed direction and rushed towards Eagle Castle. "Stop. If you don't stop, I will shoot." After the FBI warned to no avail, they were about to shoot, but a black sports car suddenly emerged from the bottom of the tanker truck and drove next to the door. The door of the tanker truck also opened, and a big muscular bald man rolled out and crashed into the sports car. Before the FBI agents shot, the sports car drove away. The tanker truck not only did not stop because of the loss of the driver, but it sped up even faster and faster. No matter how the FBI bullets made sparks on the truck body, it finally knocked away 2 police cars blocking the road and crashed into the gate of Eagle Castle. "It's showtime." Ron suddenly stood up and pressed the button on the remote control. Boom! Nearly 50 tons of gasoline burned more violently under the detonation of the remote-controlled bomb. The huge flames instantly engulfed the FBI team and the bodyguards outside Eagle Castle. The shockwave blew Ron's white cloak used to hide in the snow, and the 4 people lying on the ground were stunned by Ron's big move. "What are you still looking at? You can start now." After saying that, Ron took the lead and walked towards Eagle Castle, just like strolling in his own home, without any obstacles. "Sarah, you keep watch here, and the others follow me," Frank told his girlfriend, and led the 3 old friends past Ron and rushed in. There was a burst of gunfire in Eagle Castle. When Ron walked into the house slowly, all of Dunning's bodyguards had been dealt with by the 3 old men, and he himself was tied up and thrown to the ground. "Well done." Ron looked down at his watch. "Before the FBI and CIA support arrives, you have 15 minutes to interrogate. Now start." "Gentlemen, who are you? Don't you remember us?" Frank pressed Dunning's head to make him look at him. "But we remember you. In 1921, you left a mess in Guatemala, and we cleaned up your mess in the end. Let me ask you, who is the person you brought back from Guatemala at that time?" Frank intuitively knew that the identity of this person was the key to everything. Unexpectedly, Dunning was not panicked at all, but laughed. "Haha, I advise you not to wade into this muddy water. First of all, you can't touch me." Ron slapped him hard, knocking out 2 of Dunning's teeth. "Where does your confidence come from?" Ron cracked his fingers and made a crackling sound, then picked up a hammer and smashed a hole in the ice of the pool. Dunning asked puzzledly. What are you going to do? Do you think you can scare me with a hammer? You are wrong. Ron slapped him again. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Listen to me. I heard that if a person's limbs are frozen off, they will not feel any pain at all. I have always wanted to find a chance to verify it. Ron showed a mischievous smile on his face under the mask. The outdoor temperature is -3 degrees Celsius now, and the water can freeze again in 2 or 3 minutes. I just need to cut a hole in the middle of your pants and put your fifth limb in the water. It will only take 2 or 3 minutes, and you can tell me the result. What do you think of this experiment? Chapter 272 Political Deal. Ron thought that an arms dealer who had reached such a high position would be a little tougher than ordinary people, but it turned out that he was wrong. Dunning's reaction was even worse than that of ordinary people. Marvin just took out the scissors and pointed at his crotch. Before he could do anything, Dunning struggled. Stop. For God's sake, stop, it's really funny. An arms dealer who sells weapons everywhere and even personally instigates wars actually believes in God. Ron squatted in front of Dunning and mocked. Don't you know that if God really exists, he will throw you into hell at the first opportunity? Marvin continued to act, and the scissors had already cut Dunning's pants. Enough. Dunning was so scared that tears came out. I told you everything. We picked up a young lieutenant at that time. He was the son of the late Senator James Stanton, Robert Stanton. Frank held Marvin's hand, the current Vice President of the United States, FXXK. We are in trouble now, Joe whispered. Ron suddenly punched Dunning on the back of the head. How could this old man stand up to Ron's punch? He immediately fainted. After Ron carefully checked that Dunning was indeed unconscious, he took off his helmet and threw it on the snow. That may not be the case. It may be a new turning point. Turning point? How is that possible? Robert is the vice president now. He ordered us to be hunted down, Frank complained uncommonly. You have to understand one thing, Frank, the higher a person stands, the more enemies he has. Maybe one of his enemies is willing to clean up our mess, Ron said meaningfully. Whatever you plan to do, we should withdraw now, boss. Joe checked his watch and urged. Don't worry, don't we still have 5 minutes? It's enough for us to leave a memory for the respected Mr. Dunning. Once Ron's interest in pranks was aroused, he couldn't stop. He took out a tattoo tool from the toolbox and handed it to Marvin. Marvin, can you draw? Marvin was a little confused by Ron's sudden question, but he nodded stupidly. That's good, please continue to cut Mr. Dunning's pants open and draw a cute elephant on him. Remember to make full use of the shape of the object itself. Understand, in Washington, the capital, the famous Democratic Congressman Francis Underwood was warming up by the stove in his home while thinking about the next year's campaign plan. His relationship with the current president has reached a freezing point, and he is planning to do something next year. Although it is unlikely that he will become the new president directly, there is still hope for positions such as Secretary of State or Vice President. But he still needs an opportunity, and just when he was thinking about how to create such an opportunity, his phone suddenly rang. Francis frowned slightly, but when he saw that the caller was from Ron's name, his brows relaxed. Ron, I guess you must have some good news to tell me. Right, yes, boss. Frank and the others consciously distanced themselves from such a high-level political topic. I have a big scandal about your competitor, Robert Stanton. I wonder if you are interested. Tell me your conditions. Frank got straight to the point. I plan to do something at Robert Stanton's fundraising party. I need someone to help me get into their security system. In addition, if I accidentally make things too big, I can also guarantee that nothing will happen to you. Francis interrupted Ron before he finished speaking, but the premise is that I need to know whether it is worth it to help you get these things, or in other words, what kind of benefits can I get? The essence of politics is the exchange of interests, which is vividly reflected in the conversation between Ron and Francis at this moment. How about a notorious vice president and a group of unlucky arms dealers? But I want their tax collection rights. After all, I still have such a large group of subordinates to support. No problem. Francis agreed neatly. Keep working hard, Ron. I think highly of you. Goodbye. I'll wait for your good news. Francis maintained a steady voice, and as soon as the phone was hung up, he immediately excitedly punched the living room to celebrate. How is it, boss? Have you found your helpers? As soon as Ron hung up the phone, Joe immediately asked with concern, and Frank and Marvin also came over. Everything is done. The next stop is Chicago, but this time, We don't have to be so cautious, and we can even find a few more partners to join us." With the help of Francis, Ron immediately began to do it in a big way. Chicago is a city famous for its NBA basketball team, but for the locals, what is more famous than the Bulls is the local gangs and the mayor's surname, which has almost never changed since the founding of the country. This city was once prosperous. Although it cannot be said to be declining now, it seems a bit ridiculous compared with other cities that once flourished together. Drugs and crime are gradually becoming the new signs of this city. Therefore, when two limited edition super sports cars drove into the hidden streets in the center of the city, it inevitably attracted the eyes of the nearby houses. Some people even dug out the guns hidden in their homes, but before they could take further action, several roars of high-powered engines were heard on the road. Several more cars drove into this remote road that was usually ignored. Several men and women got out of the cars, all of them fully armed, and they looked like they were not easy to mess with. This immediately put an end to the idea of these warm and hospitable Illinois residents to hold a welcome party for their new friends. "You guys were also called by Ron? My God, I get angry when I see your face. Can you get a plastic surgery to make yourself look less annoying?" A bald black man got out of the first supercar. It was Roman. He came to Arthur and started talking. Arthur's face looked too much like a terrorist who had given him a hard time. It was no wonder that he had such an idea. However, Arthur would not tolerate his bad habit, or, "I can also knock out your eyeballs and stuff them into your anus, so that you won't find anything annoying." "Hey. Do you want Uncle Roman to teach you a lesson, you English softy?" Roman raised his fist and bluffed. "Do you believe that we can beat you to death?" Chapter 273 Fundraising Dinner. Toretto, O'Connor and Taj all had the same smile on their faces, and they took a step back in tacit understanding. "Let me correct you. It was you who wanted to compete with him, not us." "What an idiot. It's been so long, and you haven't learned that it's best not to provoke people with faces like that." Everyone turned around and saw Ron coming over on the roof. "For the sake of your boss, I'll let you go today." Roman said a harsh word at the right time, and before Arthur could react, he quickly hid behind O'Connor. Arthur clenched his fists, but finally resisted the urge to beat him up. Ron ignored him, jumped down from the roof, bumped fists with Toretto, and glanced at everyone's faces one by one. "I have a plan to make a big scene in Chicago. I need a few excellent drivers. I promise that no matter how badly you make a scene today, no one will bother you. I can even help you solve some small problems as a reward in the future. The most important thing is that there is a lot of money to be won." Ron threw out the money temptation, but of course he couldn't pay for it. In order to make his success rate higher, Mr. Francis specially allowed Ron's department not to hand in any tax collected this year, but to use it as equipment expenses. Of course, this is just an official statement. In fact, as long as Andy balances the account, Ron can do whatever he wants with the money. How much money is this? Apart from other things, the estimated tax by bankers alone is as high as 100 million. Not to mention the existence of a money printing machine like Uncle Fried Chicken, plus other miscellaneous income. Ron estimated that the tax collected by his IRS Special Operations Team alone is enough for the Department of Defense to waste in Afghanistan for a week. Of course, although Francis said that, Ron, who knew Mr. Shamu's character well, would definitely not do that, lest he suddenly turn his face against him one day and use it to make a fuss. However, it would be okay to pay the speeding thieves a high salary. "It sounds good. Who is the opponent this time?" "CIA," Ron answered casually. "CIA?" Roman suddenly raised several tones and shook his head like a wave drum. "Are you crazy? With just us, we want to fight the CIA? Do you know how many people they have? I don't even have a gun." "The gun problem is easy." Ron waved his hand, and the garbage truck that was originally parked on the side of the road suddenly moved. The shelves were propped up, and the garbage on it fell to the ground, revealing the densely packed guns inside. As for manpower, it's easier to solve. We can distract their attention first. Ron stared at the slums on both sides of the road with an unfriendly look, which was why he chose this place as the meeting place. "Hey, you, I'm talking about you, come out." Ron pointed his gun at a skinny black youth who was eavesdropping in the next room. The young man cried and begged for mercy while climbing out of the window. Ron glanced at the needle hole on his arm, and the only sympathy he had left disappeared. In the slums of the United States, it cannot be said that all, but at least most people are related to drugs. Either they take drugs themselves, or they take drugs and sell drugs. You can easily get any drugs you want in any slum in the United States. Ron has no mercy on such people. Let me ask you, have you had any brothers or friends killed by the police recently? Yes. My cousin was just beaten to death by a white policeman on the street last week for drug trafficking. The black guy looked at Ron's skin color and immediately changed his words. He was beaten to death by a white policeman in the street. Do you think this is fair? Ron guided him patiently. It's not unfair, it's fair. The black ancestor shook his head and immediately changed his words. No, this is not fair. Ron shook his head, put the gun on his waist, walked to a big trash can and jumped on it. Why should you be treated differently just because you are black? What did you do wrong? You just like to take some drugs and occasionally steal some things to make a living, but I know that you are all good people, but those stinky police discriminate against you because of your skin color. Ron shouted slogans like the most famous orator in history. Now is the time to let those white dogs who look down on us see the power of us black people. We will use marches and demonstrations to let them understand our power. As Ron's speech, more and more people walked out of their homes. Buddy, Toretto and the others were shocked by Ron. Who are you calling a white dog? Aren't you still a white person? But Ron didn't care about that. He jumped off the trash can, picked up a rifle and threw it to the black guy he had pulled out of his house, and shouted loudly, "Black lives matter. Black lives matter." As if shouting was not enough, he fired a burst of bullets into the sky with his gun, screaming, and dragged the confused black guy out to the street. A magical thing happened. On the short 300-meter road, from the garbage truck to the street corner, Ron gradually went from 2 people to 3, 4, and then hundreds of people. Some of them took the weapons that fell from the garbage truck, some took their own weapons, and some even tore the torn sheets at home and wrote the slogan that Ron had just shouted on them to make flags. From a distance, it looked like an army, and the number of people was still increasing. The police cars that heard the gunshots and rushed over did not dare to stop and ran away in a hurry. The black guy at the head of the team had no confusion and fear on his face. Instead, he had a kind of emotion called fanaticism, which spread among the crowd like an infectious disease. Ron had already gotten away and stood with Toretto and the others again. "Boss, what are you doing?" Hank asked fearfully. "Of course, we are creating something to distract the CIA. Why are you still standing there? Why don't you hurry up and grab your weapons and join us? You called us all the way from Los Angeles just to accompany you in the parade." Toretto finally couldn't stand it anymore after following the team for a while. Ron hadn't said anything until now except to tell him that the opponent this time was the CIA. Of course not. Ron looked back and found that the team had grown a lot longer, and there were more and more passers-by watching outside. He stopped, picked up a stone from the ground, and threw it at the Apple store on the side of the road. "The latest Apple mobile phone on the market, come and grab it." Ron's shout was completely redundant, because as soon as the glass was broken, countless figures skillfully drilled in through the glass window. Not only did they not stop after stealing the mobile phones, but also smashed the store to pieces with sticks they carried with them. Hank was stunned by this doomsday scene. "My target is the vice president's fundraising dinner. Now, gentlemen, we can go to the dinner." Chapter 274, Black Lives Matter and Live Broadcast. In Chicago, in a luxurious banquet hall, as the protagonist of the fundraising dinner tonight, Vice President Robert Stanton stood at the door with a smile on his face to welcome every important guest. He would greet everyone with a few words under the prompting of the assistant beside him, whether he knew them or not. As a vice president, he didn't need to remember everyone's name and occupation. It was enough for these assistants to remember. He had more important things to do. For example, imagine that after his re-election, the new president died during his term. In that case, he could become the second lucky person after Truman and succeed the position of the president with a temporary bill. However, soon, the new news told to him by the assistant in his ear made his heart jump, but with the qualities of a politician, he still maintained a smile on his face, apologized to others with a smile, and walked to the corner. There, the CIA commander in charge of the security of the dinner had been waiting there. "What's going on?" Robert said angrily. "I don't know what's wrong with the black people in the old city. They suddenly gathered in large numbers to protest for a black drug dealer who was shot dead by the police last month. Then, when they passed by the Apple mobile phone store, someone smashed the window of the store. Now the demonstration has turned into a large-scale looting and burning activity. Almost all the stores in the old city are being robbed. What do the police do when they spend so much taxpayer money every year? Why haven't they been able to suppress those damn black people until now, when there was no one around? Robert did not hide his racist tendencies at all and cursed carelessly. Discrimination against blacks is his personal idea, and racial equality is politics. The two are not contradictory. The commander twitched his lips, but decided to forget the discordant words he had just heard, because almost all of them have weapons in their hands, and are equipped with a large number of automatic rifles, which are not much weaker than the police's firepower, so the police have not dared to take coercive measures until now. If a large-scale bloody conflict breaks out during your fundraising dinner, it will not be a good thing for you or that person, so I can only keep urging the Chicago police to increase police force. I suggest that for your safety, can we cancel tonight's dinner? Absolutely not. We can only win the election if we raise more money from those capitalists. President Robert refused. But what should we do with that group of rioters? Their scope of activities is getting larger and larger. I'm afraid there will be some bad news tomorrow. Most of the media are on our side. They know how to talk. As long as the police don't have too much conflict with them, even if some people use this to influence public opinion, it won't cause too much splash. Robert stretched out his hand and clenched it towards the round moon outside the window. Everything is still under control. This country will continue to be on the right track under the leadership of the Democratic Party. This dinner is mainly to entertain capitalists in Chicago. There won't be too many problems with security. You can devote some of your energy to maintaining law and order. Try not to shoot if you can. When I leave Chicago, you can do whatever you want. Robert gritted his teeth and transferred some of the police who cooperated with the CIA to maintain order to the local police in Chicago. Although he said that the lives of these black people were not as precious as they thought, before the election, stability was the most important thing. These black people must not be allowed to cause any trouble and affect his political career. On the rooftop parking lot of another shopping mall near the banquet hall, Ron couldn't help but raise his mouth with pride after seeing another pair of policemen withdraw from the banquet hall. Okay, the game can finally start. Guys, are you ready? Ron turned around and saw Toretto and Hank leading two groups of people wearing masks and Avengers cosplay costumes, standing in a row, waiting for his orders. If the atmosphere wasn't too serious, people who didn't know would have thought it was a gathering of anime fans. Of course, Boss Smith answered confidently, with their small number of people, they can attack head-on without any problems. No, don't get it wrong. Our purpose is not to cause large-scale casualties. That's what terrorists do. Ron checked his weapons again. As one of the law enforcers of this country, we are the embodiment of justice. Our purpose is nothing more than to expose the ugly faces of the hypocritical politicians in the upper echelons of this country. Have you caught him? Ron fixed his eyes on Toretto. Half an hour ago, Ron found another group of people following them. It turned out to be Mr. Dunning, the arms dealer who was tricked by them in Eagle Castle. What's more amazing is that he is actually involved with a leading agent of the CIA. Ron intuitively felt that things were not that simple, so he asked Toretto to catch it back. It's here. Toretto threw the large luggage bag in the trunk of the car on the ground, and a cry of pain came when the bag fell to the ground. Nice to meet you again, dear Mr. Dunning. I guess you didn't finish the game last time, so you must still have some regrets, right? What new tricks do you want to try this time? Marvin cooperated and handed over the toolbox. This soldering iron trick should be a bit outdated. I guess you probably won't like it, but I recently heard about a new game. Do you want to try the steel wool? Ron took out a dishwashing steel wool from the box. I heard that it is a new way of playing invented by some rich women. I don't know how to do it specifically, but I have a vague idea. Ron moved his eyes to Mr. Dunning's crotch. Dunning struggled more violently. Ron nodded, so Marvin took the rag out of her mouth. Let me go. I have absolutely no ill will towards you. I want to cooperate with you. Please, give me a chance. As soon as the rag was pulled out, Dunning couldn't wait to scream, and even revealed Ron's true identity. Ron's eyes became sharp. Mr. Dunning, you are just a prisoner of mine now. What makes you think you are qualified to cooperate with me? Or the person behind me? Ron didn't understand politics, but the battlefield taught her a truth. That is, if you want to live, you must prove your worth. Otherwise your superiors will always use it as cannon fodder to attract fire. I have all the evidence of Robert's crime. I also have his official letter ordering the massacre of the village. I even have a video of him at Epstein's house. Mr. Dunning opened his mouth and talked about the explosives. Ron showed an intriguing smile, squinted his eyes and walked to Dunning, bent down and faced him. So dear Mr. Dunning, Can I understand that he is a puppet you pushed out? Then who is behind you? Ron knew that the things behind Robert were definitely not that simple, but he never thought that the person behind him was an inconspicuous arms dealer. Lockheed Martin. All my arms came from them, including the several arms orders that Robert has recently facilitated, all of which were done by them. For some reason, Dunning had an inexplicable fear of the steel wool in Ron's hand. In order to prevent his vital organs from being severely damaged, he spilled all the inside information he knew. Ron nodded with satisfaction. Arthur, did you record it all? Arthur walked out from Hank with a camera. Since Mr. Dunning was released just now, he has been filming at Ron's instruction. Dong-Ning was frightened by the sudden camera and trembled all over. What the hell are you doing? Of course it is broadcast live to the people of the whole country on YouTube. Now there are about 35,000 people watching at the same time. But don't worry, no one attending the dinner can see our live broadcast. I have blocked the network signal of the entire area. Come and say hello to our audience friends. Ron waved at the camera, but Dunning was disheartened. It was over now, all over. He originally thought that as long as he confessed, he could save his life, but now it seems that Ron's life is saved, but after being let go by Ron, it is not certain whether the people of Lockheed Martin will let him go. That is one of the best arms companies in the United States. There are a large number of their people in both the underworld and the white world. In the foreseeable future, what awaits him will be endless pursuit. Dear audience friends, hello. I believe that everyone still has doubts about what Mr. Dunning said just now, but don't worry, I will immediately invite another party to our party, that is, our dear Vice President. We are the Avengers who uphold justice. Wait a moment and be back soon. Ron walked to the edge of the parking lot and raised the dart launcher with Arthur O'Connor, Giselle, and the Smiths. Bang! The dart dragged the long steel cable and instantly shattered the fragile glass of the banquet hall opposite and fixed on the wall on the top floor of the banquet hall. The CIA agents who heard the news had no time to see what was happening. They suddenly felt a pain in their necks and fell to the ground unconscious, revealing the old men standing behind them, wearing various chef or cleaning clothes. Frank and his gang had already forged their identities and ambushed before the banquet began, and now they had cleared the obstacles for Ron and his team to sneak in. Avengers, let's go, Ron shouted, and was the first to swing along the rope, followed by several people in turn. Under the shooting of the drone camera, the picture was constantly transmitted to the live broadcast room on YouTube. Those who didn't know would think that The Avengers, which was being prepared, had been released. The number of people watching the live broadcast also increased as the audience spread the word of mouth, and it was vaguely about to exceed 50,000. Even in an unknown small apartment in Pasadena, Los Angeles, 4 otaku scientists stared at the computer screen motionlessly, watching this live broadcast. Hey, Leonard, are you sure this isn't the latest trailer released by The Avengers? Leonard frowned. I can't tell for sure. I don't think it is. If it's the latest trailer of The Avengers, how could these superheroes have no superpowers at all? That's lame. That's right, Rajesh continued while eating potato chips. I just saw Thor swinging on a rope. Doesn't he have Thor's hammer? Why doesn't he fly over with a hammer? Maybe it's a movie from a parallel universe. I remember there seemed to be a parallel universe movie in which all the superheroes lost their superpowers. It seems to be like this. No, it's absolutely impossible, Sheldon said firmly, no matter where it is. In a parallel universe, the Hulk can't be a masked, muscular black man. Not to mention that the Captain America just now didn't even have a shield, but his muscles are like the real Captain America, almost as strong as Ron. I think he's more suitable to play Captain America than Chris Evans. If Ron could hear Sheldon's comments, he would definitely say to him loudly, no doubt, that's me. I am indeed more suitable to play Captain America than Chris Evans. Hey. Look, Howard pointed at the screen excitedly. They opened fire. Oh my god. I have never seen such an exciting gun battle movie. Whether this is a new Avengers movie or not, if this is a trailer, I will definitely go to the cinema to watch it. In Chicago, after Ron and his team entered the top floor of the banquet hall along the steel cable, they immediately cleared the CIA agents from top to bottom one by one. On the other side, after Ron started the action, Toretto also got into the car with the rest of the people and rushed down from the rooftop parking lot. Only Hank, who was holding a sniper rifle, and Carl, who was controlling 3 drones at the same time and guarding Mr. Dunning, were left on the roof. Of course, the CIA commander was not stupid. Soon, he found that something was wrong. The agent upstairs had not reported to her for more than 3 minutes. Under normal circumstances, in order to ensure each other's safety, agents should report the situation to their superiors every 2 minutes to confirm that there is no abnormality here. Alert! Alert! There is an intruder upstairs, the commander shouted loudly with the intercom. Team 4, Team 5, move to the 5th floor to see what is going on with Team 2. As soon as the voice fell, bang! A truck reinforced with steel pipes crashed into the entrance of the banquet hall on the 1st floor. Without waiting for the agents at the door to react, the door opened and 2 militants holding MP5 submachine guns jumped out and fired at them crazily. The series of bullets made them unable to raise their heads. The Commander Alliance found a wall and hid behind it. He waved to the agent behind him. This was his capable and very powerful commando. The commando nodded, pointed to the 3 agents next to him, and immediately formed a team. While the intruder was reloading, they rushed out. Chapter 275, the matter is over and he leaves to hide his merits and fame. The assault team just rushed out from behind the wall that served as a bunker. Before they could fire a bullet from their guns, a cone-shaped object immediately fell on the ground in front of them. Boom! The fire was the last scene they saw in this world. The flesh and blood torn by shrapnel were splashed everywhere under the power of the explosion shockwave. Even the CIA commander was inevitably stained with a few pieces of his men's body. Ant-Man turned around, and the Plus version of Doctor Strange, on the roof of the opposite building, waved to this side. The audience on YouTube was disgusted by this shot, but they had to shout that it was exciting and adrenaline was surging. If there was any shortcoming, it was probably that the actor of Doctor Strange was too fat. If this was really a trailer of a Marvel movie, they would definitely protest collectively and demand a thinner actor to play the role. Sheldon even started to call Marvel Studios to complain. However, the phone was busy and could not be connected. At this moment, Marvel's customer service phone was almost blown up, with various complaints and consultation calls coming in one after another. The questions asked were all related to Marvel's new Avengers trailer, but the amazing thing was that their customer service staff didn't know anything about the trailer. Could this be another new marketing trick played by the company? This is probably the common psychology of all Marvel customer service staff now. This magical situation, of course, also attracted the attention of various American intelligence personnel. The head of the CIA even saw the faces of several of his men from the live broadcast screen, and immediately called to force the website to shut down the live broadcast. However, under the manipulation of an invisible big hand, Ron's live broadcast room was not only not shut down, but even topped the homepage hot search. It attracted more Marvel fans and action movie enthusiasts to watch. However, the CIA commander is not in a good mood to care about the trailer of the Marvel movie now. He is only worried about whether the vice president he is protecting will encounter any accidents. The situation in the banquet hall is unclear now. We can only guess that it is safe for the time being. However, the entire banquet hall is being attacked by this group of unidentified terrorists from both the upper and lower floors. If nothing is done, it will only be a matter of time before it falls. The commander grabbed the intercom and shouted helplessly on the public channel, "The main door on the 1st floor needs support. Another team is coming. Group 1 and Group 8 in the banquet hall will take the vice president out of the back door immediately. The others will continue to stay at their posts to buy time for the evacuation." It must be said that the person who can become the commander of the CIA is indeed quite capable. He saw through Ron's strategy of luring the tiger away from the mountain at the first time, and stopped foolishly defending. Instead, while increasing the number of manpower and seemingly confronting the intruder, he attracted Ron's attention and let the real target person leave under the escort of the team. From the perspective of tactical competition, the winner is undoubtedly the CIA. But will Ron be as stupid as he thinks? As soon as the two groups of CIA agents came out of the banquet hall with Vice President Robert, they were frantically shot by 3 MP5 submachine guns. The defenseless team was instantly reduced by half. The dead CIA agents could not figure out where the terrorists came from until they died. The structure of the banquet building, the main entrance and the roof are connected by 2 elevators, a freight elevator, and a staircase, and the back door is not among them, only connected to the banquet hall. The terrorists could not get around to the back door without passing through the banquet hall. How did they do it? Unfortunately, this question can only be left to ask God in heaven. Ron certainly would not tell them that after he and the retired old man army met on the roof, They did not join forces. Instead, they let the old men continue to play the role of banquet hall service staff, and were chased by Ron and his group of terrorists and ran around, and followed other staff running around in the building into the banquet hall. Then they slipped out of the back door in advance before the agents in the hall closed the banquet hall. Because the scene was too chaotic, there was no time to search the bodies, and Frank and his men were allowed to bring MP5 submachine guns in without being discovered, which led to the scene of catching them off guard at the back door. The use of this tactic can be said to be the ultimate in switching between reality and illusion. The remaining few members of the CIA escort team only had pistols in their hands, and they were unintentional. Under the attack of the Iron Triangle composed of Frank, Marvin, and Joe, they were wiped out in a few seconds. Only President Robert, who was at a loss, stood there. "Who are you?" As the three figures got closer and closer, President Robert retreated step by step in panic until he was forced to the wall. Under the light, the faces of the three figures finally appeared. The three culprits who killed two groups of CIA agents turned out to be three dying old men. Frank, of course, those you ordered to be hunted down. "I don't understand what you are talking about." Robert wanted to deny it, but after Frank spit out two words expressionlessly, he immediately calmed down. Guatemala, 1981, Robert opened his mouth, unable to speak. "I was there too," Marvin added. At the same time, when the live broadcast switched to the camera on Frank's body and gave a close-up of Vice President Robert, the live broadcast split another half of the screen. Attached was the inside story of Guatemala revealed by Mr. Dunning under Hank's interrogation. The two men had a confrontation in the air without knowing each other. For a time, the whole United States was in an uproar. No one could have imagined that Robert Stanton, a rising star in the political arena who had always had a good reputation and was expected to win the next vice president, actually had such an unknown black history. This is not a small matter. Compared with Robert's black material, the scandals of the previous presidents are simply child's play. This is a massacre of the village. Only the German could do such a thing. What kind of person did they choose as vice president? If such a person leads the United States, where will the United States go? In addition, the reputation of the current president who chose Robert has been affected to a certain extent. Although he may not have known about it, he could not escape the charge of negligence. At this moment, only Francis was in his villa, watching the live broadcast and laughing. With Robert's fall, he lost another strong competitor. After receiving the signal from Frank, Ron issued a retreat order. The intruders upstairs and downstairs threw smoke bombs at the agents at the same time, and immediately threw several grenades equipped with time delay fuses. After the grenades killed several agents who bravely entered the smoke to chase, they left. If the commander of the CIA had learned Chinese, he would definitely think of the classic ancient poem, "After the work is done, I will leave, hiding my merits and fame." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.